Good evening. I'm calling this meeting of the Sacramento City Unified School District Board of Education back to order. Item 4.1, the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by our superintendent.
Please stand. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're missing one of our best parent volunteers who always adds someday at the end of our Pledge of Allegiance. Item 4.2, our broadcast statement, which will be read by our student board member, Ang Olson.
This meeting of the Sacramento City School Board is being recorded in its entirety and will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Uverse. Today's meeting will air Monday, November 25th at noon and Friday, November 29th at 6 o'clock p.m. and also webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. We welcome members of the audience to address the board. Please complete a speaker form located in the back of the community room and give them to our communications representative, along with any handouts you may have for the board prior to the conclusion of the item's presentation. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. Please limit comments during public comment to items that are not on the agenda. If you do comment on an item that is on the agenda, we will ask that you please defer your comments until your item comes up on the agenda. Please also turn off your cell phones or place them on silent or vibrate.
Thank you so much, Board Member Ang Olson. Item 4.3, our stellar student recognition. Tonight we'll be recognizing the Native youth of Sacramento and presenting an award to those youth. If you can please come forward. I am very proud to bring up this item tonight. I will tell you, the Native Youth of Sacramento is a group of inspiring 7th through 12th grade students in the district. They have a remarkable mission to build community for younger generations of students and increasing the knowledge of their culture and heritage. They were recently instrumental in hosting the Wilton Rancheria Halloween event, where they volunteered time assisting, planning, facilitating games for over 200 youth. And they also are part of the Sacramento Native American Caucus, which recently requested their assistance recognizing veterans by volunteering time to bead necklaces for Native American veterans in the Sacramento area. NYS is the district's first Native Youth Leadership Council, and the program has assisted in the development of several young Native leaders becoming ambassadors to the Sacramento area. Working with the Sacramento Native American Health Center, my Brothers Keepers Fellows, the Fifth Direction Young Men's Talking Circle, Coble Scholars, Alan Alvera Memorial Scholarship recipients, and former participants that have also successfully contributed and graduated from Sac City Unified School. This year, our NYS youth will complete a youth participatory research project with the assistance of their adult facilitator, Celeste Osife. And I want to just recognize that recently several of our Native youth and our caring adults brought forward a report that was put together by Cecil out of San Diego, really looking at disproportionate impact of K-12 policies and suspension and expulsion, and found that our Native youth quite often, because a smaller percentage of the population do not get the amount of focus on their journey, their struggles, and their contributions in the way that they need to see, equivalent to other populations in our district. What they found is that our Native youth, at the same rates of our African American youth, are often overrepresented in suspension and expulsion, and yet under-recognized for the incredible contributions and cultural experiences that each and every one of them bring to our district day in, day out. I want to thank our NYS youth and their amazing mentors for continuing to elevate their voice and grow our leaders to become powerful future voices for Native American youth and the experiences that they will ensure will not be forgotten, but will continue to be a vital part of Sacramento, California, the nation, and beyond. If you can turn around, we'd love to recognize you and have you say a few words. Do we have a youth representative who would like to speak?
Matrixis Okone Yasa Cecilia Okone Nu Miwok Ion. Hi, my name is Cecilia. I'm Miwok from Ion, and I want to thank you guys for representing us and just showing us here tonight. I feel like it's showing our youth more and more that it's okay to be out of your shell a little bit, and it's okay to let loose and just be who you are for your community and for yourself. So thank you.
Thank you. We have certificates of recognition that I'm going to bring down, and we're going to take a photo. Any of my board members, please feel free to join me. Our first certificate goes to Michael Hunsacker. Our second goes to Max Jernigan. Okay. Oh, wonderful. Lena McGurk. Annalise Michel. Isabel Michel. Cheyenne Miller. Julia Osuna Moreno. Alex Tamasayo. Michelle Yoker. And are we missing? Okay. And we have a dance that are going to be performed by our youth, and then we'll take a photo with them.
We gotta get out of the way because I don't know. It's a song. It's a song. No, we're not dancing. We're singing.
We're going to come and take a picture with you. Thank you. At what point? I'm not sure. I'm confused. Okay. So we're going to have a chance to have a performance from these wonderful students before item 9.2, our American Indian Educational Program presentation. Item 5.0, announcement of action taken in closed session.
Yes, Madam President, I have the only announcements out of closed session. By a vote of 6-0 with Board Member Borowski absent, the board approved 2 special education settlement matters identified as OEH case number 2019-080715 and case number 2019-060569. That concludes the announcements out of closed session, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Item 6.0, agenda adoption. Tonight's agenda will be adopted in memory of Patrick Green. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? All those in favor? Motion carries. Item
Board Member
7.
Ryan, we have a public comment
Okay.
from
thank
Nikki
you.
Milewski.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm Nikki Malevsky, First Vice President of the Sacramento City Teachers Association. Our President, David Fisher, could not be here with us tonight. His mother-in-law passed away, and he's been called to Panama to be with his wife's family. We have a few things that we would like to bring to your attention this evening. First, on Tuesday, November 12th, we had a very successful training with the Cruz Reynoso Bar Association regarding the rights of immigrant students and educators as it relates to the district's safe haven policy and the California and federal law. We are very pleased to be working with Luis Cespedes and the Cruz Reynoso Bar Association to provide this much-needed training. We hope to provide it for every certificated educator in the district between now and the end of the school year. And we are pleased to announce that we have just received a substantial grant from NEA to help us in this effort. Second, in the back, we have flyers and a copy of an invitational letter from County Supervisor Phil Cerna, inviting interested parents and community stakeholders to a community forum that we will be holding at the former Fruit Ridge Elementary School on December 12th at 6:30. Assemblyman Kevin McCarty has also agreed to co-sponsor the event. We are very pleased that a number of organizations have agreed to co-sponsor our forum, including SEIU Local 1021, the Sacramento Central Labor Council, SEIU Local 1000, the Black Parallel School Board, Pastor Les Simmons, the Cruz Reynoso Bar Association, the Greater Sacramento Economic Council, the Los Rios Federation of Teachers, CTA, the California Federation of Teachers, Youth Forward, and of course, Supervisor Phil Cerna. We continue to believe that if Sacramento wants to be a major league city, we need a major league public school district. That starts with fiscal transparency and accountability, keeping your word, and spending valuable district resources on our students, rather than giving them away to for-profit insurance companies. We have a number of ideas for advancing our district, restorative practices, and implementing of an MTS program, ensuring that all of our students, especially those with
Thank
special
you, Ms.
needs, have
Malevsky.
the education that they deserve.
Thank
We
you.
hope to see lots of people there on December 12th. And if you would like to sign the Schools and Communities First Initiative, I have documents in the back of the room. Thank you.
Wonderful. I would encourage everyone to sign the Schools and Community First Initiative, much-needed resources for our schools across the state of California. Item 7.0, special presentation. First, 7.1, approving resolution, recognition of the National Native American Heritage Month. Christina Navarez.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call up the chair and vice chair of our American Indian Education Parent Committee, Susan Morla and Melissa Iniguez,
Thank
and
you.
also any other parent committee members if they'd like to come up. I don't know.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm not entirely.
Okay. So I'm happy to read a bit of the resolution, and if any of you wanted to provide comment, I know that you had expressed interest. Tonight, we're going to adopt a resolution in recognition of National Native American Heritage Month. Whereas the United States celebrates National Native American Heritage Month every year in November, whereas National Native American Heritage Month is an opportunity to consider and recognize the contributions of Native Americans in the history of the United States, whereas Sacramento City Unified is committed to improving the academic and social emotional outcomes for Native American students and all students in the region, whereas Sac City Unified's American Indian Education Program, AIEP, provides tutoring, culturally relevant programs, back-to-school events, field trips, and graduation recognition for American Indian students enrolled in the program. And I'm going to just go to therefore be it resolved that the Sacramento City Unified School District Board of Education recognizes November 29th, 2019, as National Native American Heritage Month. Congratulations.
President, there's two of them.
Did either of you want to provide any comment?
Thank you.
And a second?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Preferential vote.
Do one more photo. Okay. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you for your presentation. I'm looking
So the record will reflect the preferential vote was cast in favor.
Okay, and our student preferential vote? Aye. Thank you so much, Board Member Ing Olson. Item 7.2, approving resolution of number 3112, recognition of National Adoption Awareness Month. I have to tell you, I am incredibly proud to bring this resolution forward tonight for multiple reasons. I think you know that I am a proud adoptive parent. The greatest thing to ever happen to me was adopting my son at 6 months old and my daughter at nearly 4 years old. Life-changing, and the fruition of a family that has given me so much. I will say, we know that in Sacramento, we have adoptive families who are the fabric of each and every one of our Sacramento City Unified Schools, and that quite often, one of the realities of our adoptive families is that despite the fact that they reflect the beautiful diversity of families that are contributing in remarkable ways to our school community, their experiences are not always reflected. Many children who are adopted, whether they've been adopted internationally, nationally, or through foster care, don't necessarily have the information on their background that fits traditionally into the neat model of a family tree. And so one of the reasons we do our National Adoption Month resolution and post accompanying information on the district's website to share with educators, with staff, and with families is to celebrate the diversity of our adoptive families, to recognize that there are thousands of children right here in the Sacramento region waiting to be adopted in the foster care system, and to recognize the beautiful contributions of our adoptive children and the unique experiences that they bring to our classroom. Tonight, I have the honor of presenting this resolution to one family that epitomizes the beauty of transracial adoption and of being a part of an inclusive adoptive community. And so I'm going to read a few bullets from the resolution and then call up our family to receive this resolution tonight and say a few words. Whereas public education serves a wide variety of students from traditional as well as non-traditional families, including but not limited to adopted, guardian, and foster. Whereas Sacramento City Unified School District understands that loving and nurturing families are strengthened and expanded when committed and dedicated individuals make an important difference in the life of a child through adoption. Where on any given day, there are nearly 443,000 children in the United States alone awaiting a family. Whereas 1/3 of children entering the United States foster system are young people of color, and whereas nearly 1/4 of individuals in the United States have considered adoption, and our individuals throughout the district and beyond need to recognize the realities and contributions of our adoptive families. Today, we are recognizing November's National Adoption Month and resolving that the Sacramento City Unified School District Board of Education supports the goals and ideals of National Adoption Month, recognizes that every child should have a permanent and loving family, and encourages individuals within the local community and educators throughout the district to consider adopting during the month of November and to include culturally responsive, inclusive adoption curriculum throughout the calendar year. So with that, I would love to call up Claudia Jason. I would love to call up Michael Funk and their beautiful daughter, Janae. Oh.
I think it's the first time she's testified before a school board. I recall. Superintendent Aguilar, President Ryan, and distinguished board members and community members with us, many I know and have the pleasure of working with. We were filled with joy at the invitation to come tonight to represent adoptive families that are part of this district, part of the fabric of this district. We're thrilled to be a proud family of Washington Elementary School District and all of the wonderful children there. And many, many people have come to us and just with a warm heart have said how lucky Janae must be. And we are saying back all the time how lucky we are because she's blessed our life in ways that I cannot describe or ever imagine, and she's enriched our family and our public schools. So thank you for this honor.
Thank you, Michael. I'll move the resolution. Second? Second. Student preferential vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye.
We do one more? Come home.
Yes, I love it. You can show Brooklyn tomorrow. Item 7.3, approving resolution number 3114 in support of the Public Preschool K-12 and College Health and Safety Bond Act of 2020, Proposition 13, which will be presented tonight by Christina Pritchett.
Thank you, President Ryan. And before I begin, I'd just like to recognize my husband who's sitting in the front row. Tonight, we're celebrating our 21st wedding anniversary. Yes. He has put up with me for that long, and sometimes being the spouse of an elected official is much harder than being the elected official. So thank you for being here. This is the second anniversary we've spent in this room. Okay, so tonight I'm really excited to bring this resolution forward for the district support of the state bond that will be on the ballot for March 2020 in the primary election. I'd like to call up Kevin Farah from the Sierra Building Trades as well as our district facilities team to receive the frame resolution. If you can come to the podium. And while you're on your way up, I'd like to just say a few things. The district has more than $3.5 million in facility needs, which we'll hear more about in later in tonight's agenda. The state bond, if passed, would provide matching state funds that would provide and help the district further address our staggering facility needs. We, as district officials, we see every day that many of our campuses are not conducive to a positive learning environment. The state bond would not only help modernize the district's facilities for improved teaching and learning, but it would also create more middle-class jobs both locally and across the state. With that, I'd like to just read a couple of the whereases from the resolution. And let's see, actually, I'll just read them from here. Whereas the Sacramento City Unified School District has more than $3.5 million in facility repair needs, which could be partially funded by the state matching funds authorized by state bonds. Whereas Prop 13, which is actually the state bond, on the March 3rd, 2020 ballot, the Public Preschool K-12 and College Health and Safety Bond Act of 2020 will provide for renovation and upgrade of existing classroom and facilities. Whereas the California unemployment rate is greater than the national unemployment rate. Whereas 17,000 middle-class jobs are created for each $1 billion in school facility infrastructure investment. Whereas Prop 13 will provide a combined $18 billion in state and local funded elementary and high school projects. Whereas 306,000 jobs will be created throughout California and will include almost all building trades. Whereas quality, future-focused schools, facilities designed for today and tomorrow's students will result in enhanced academic achievement and further SCUSD's equity, access, and social justice guiding principle. Whereas Prop 13, the Public School K through 12 and College Health and Safety Bond Act of 2020 will not raise state taxes. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Sacramento City Unified School District Board of Education supports Proposition 13 on the March 3rd, 2020 primary election ballot, the Public Preschool and K through 12 College and Health Safety Bond Act of 2020. Before we vote on this, I'd like to I'd also like to say that the proposed state bond highlights that the importance of the districts of having the project labor agreement that we passed some time ago, and SCUS, or that we had it, but then we revised it. SCUSD currently has a PLA in place with strong partnership between the building trades and the district. This partnership helps ensure the state-of-the-art facilities are constructed for our students and our communities. With that, I'd like to ask Kevin to share a few words, followed by Jeff Bozeman from the District Facilities Department. You come to the podium.
Good evening, President Ryan, Superintendent Aguilera, and the board members. Kevin Furr, Executive Director of the Sacramento Sierra Building and Construction Trades Council. We're happy to walk in step with the board and the district in support of this resolution. It will create jobs, thus enhance the learning environment of our students. And so with that, we are asking for a full support of the board to endorse this resolution. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Kevin.
Mr. Bozeman?
Good evening, President Ryan, Superintendent Aguilar. I would like to introduce, I'm Jeff Bozeman, the construction manager for the district, and I would like to introduce our team. This is Rachel Chard, Amna Javid, Alan Contreras. This is our facilities team. This is the tip of the spear when we were planning all our projects. I would like to thank you guys for supporting this resolution, because this is another tool in our belt to guide us to bring our students into the 21st century learning and give them the facilities they will and much need to deserve. So I want to, with that, for all of us, I would like to say thank you for your support.
Okay. Thank you. I'll come down with the resolution, but I will move to support resolution number 3114.
And I will second. All those in favor? Oh, student preferential vote?
Aye.
And Jeff, I want to thank you. I know that you were leading the project at American Legion, which opened up yesterday, our beautiful culinary academy, incredible new gym, and that it was your first project, and it could not have been completed in a better fashion. We are so proud of what you were able to do for our students. Thank you.
Thank you.
And all those in favor? Aye.
What?
You finally outgrew the
Perfect.
That?
Okay, I'm clapping. I was clapping. Thank you so much. Item 8.0, public comment. Members of the public have the opportunity to address the board at this time on non-agendized items. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak, with no more than 15 minutes on a single topic. Speakers can combine their time. Do we have any public comments on non-agendized items?
We do. We have 11 public comments. Please come to the podium as your name's called. We're going to start with Crystal Moreno, Alina Cervantes, Tara Thronson, and Shannon Smith, and Art Taylor.
What?
I thought you moved something.
No, it's one new way. Very nice now. Nikki came up and
On what? That's what I was trying to figure out. On what?
Good evening. My cousin Crystal's going to yield her time to me. Unless I talk fast, then she'll take the leftover time.
Okay. So Anne, we have 4 minutes on this item.
Good evening, board members. Yesterday was Universal Children's Day and the 60th anniversary of the UN's Declaration on the Rights of the Child. Monday, November 18th, was Wilma Mankiller's birthday, the first woman elected to serve as principal chief of the Cherokee Nation. I'm usually here speaking as a parent, but tonight I'm proud to be here as an Indigenous woman and as a teacher of almost 25 years to reaffirm children's rights to equitable education and to call on my fellow teachers to be the peacemakers. Wilma Mankiller said, quote, "In Iroquois society, leaders are encouraged to remember 7 generations in the past and consider 7 generations in the future when making decisions that affect the people. To our district and labor leaders, and particularly the leaders who will not come to the table, I urge you to also consider future generations." Wilma was referring to the Haudenosaunee people, which means people who build a house. The name refers to a confederation or alliance among 6 Native American nations. The nations of the Confederacy recognize themselves as the Haudenosaunee from their own language, meaning that they made the house, symbolizing all the nations coming together as one. The symbol, the longhouse, was provided by the peacemaker, and it signified a way of living together as families of the same house. And what can we learn from them? One of the most important events that shaped them was the creation of the Great Law of Peace. It guided them through all aspects of life. The peacemaker's teaching emphasized the power of reason, not force, to assure the 3 principles of the Great Law: righteousness, justice, and health. The Great Law of Peace provides the people with instructions on how to treat others, directs them on how to maintain a democratic society, and expresses how reason must prevail in order to preserve peace. Please, my fellow teachers, allow reason to prevail. It's been almost 8 months since all parties have come together to build our longhouse. Demand that your leaders come to the table, find the savings, and encumber them until arbitration. Please stop supporting leaders that are obstacles to peace. Please stop supporting leaders that set the tone for intimidation tactics that I have experienced as a parent, and I know other teachers are experiencing when they don't blindly follow. Our children are watching. We need the district and leadership from all 5 unions to work together to solve these problems, just as the original 5 nations of the Haudenosaunee came together, connected by the Great Law of Peace. As we approach Thanksgiving, I want to end with a part of the Thanksgiving address which gives thanks to the enlightened teachers. We gather our minds to greet and thank the enlightened teachers who have come to help throughout the ages. When we forget how to live in harmony, they remind us of the way we were instructed to live as people. With one mind, we send greetings and thanks to these caring teachers, now our minds as one. I call to the enlightened teachers among us. Please come together for our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tara Thronson, parent of 2 in this school district and co-founder of Parents United to Restore Our Schools. We continue to call on our decision makers to come together and resolve the challenges facing our district. The last attempted meeting of the district and SCTA was on April 8th, 2019. That was 227 days ago. This is unacceptable. We know you chose to serve in this school district in your various ways to serve our students, not to fight with adults. We need you to have a functional relationship for our children. The dispute on the current SCTA contract remains regarding healthcare savings that do not yet exist. SCTA agreed to make a change by July 1st, 2018. More than a year later, There's millions of dollars in estimated savings have not been captured to invest in our education system. SETA should make the change and the savings should be encumbered until the arbitration has a resolution. We prefer to see millions of dollars in savings for our students rather than going to HealthNet. And finally, parents founded this group because we want fiscally solvent budget and transparent budgeting practices such that we avoid a state takeover and create a district that provides excellent education to every student. We still have a structural deficit with no path to a solution. Board members, please share with us the potential solutions to address the estimated deficit, the estimated annual cost savings for each potential solution, and the funding source. I know it's an estimate of what the deficit is, but we need to start working on it. This spring, we went through all these different solutions. They didn't have dollars amounts tied to it. And then later we found out some was restricted funding. So please, let's just start going through it. Lay it all out. And if it has to do with negotiated bargaining solutions, tell us what those potential solutions are. So as parents, we can be involved. Developing a fiscally solvent budget is good for our kids. And as parents, we can't solve this. We need all 5 unions in the district to do this together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent Aguilar and board members. Hello, my name is Shannon Schmidt. I'm the Dean of Students at the California Montessori Project Capitol Campus. We're here this evening. My superintendent, Brett Barley, who you may recall from a couple of meetings past. Also, last couple of weeks ago, my principal, Bernie Evangelista, also visited. And our intent in being here really is just to let you get to know us a little bit better. So I'm here to introduce myself and really to invite you all to a unique event that we're going to be holding at our campus. It is called the World Fair. Over the next few weeks, each of our classrooms will focus their studies more heavily on a particular country or culture from around the world. They're going to be creating special projects at home and in class to be displayed the night of the event. I was sad. I wish I had brought something my daughter actually made in recent years. We have this beautiful display she created of Croatia, but there will be many other beautiful displays. It's a very fun and colorful celebration of diversity, and we wanted to warmly invite you to come out and visit with our amazing students and staff. This year, our World Fair will occur on December 18th from 5 until 6:30 p.m. at our campus that's located at the old Thomas Jefferson campus at 2635 Chestnut Hill Drive. It would be really lovely to see all of you there. Thank you for having both of us this evening.
Thank you for the invitation.
Good evening, Board. My name is Art Taylor, and I don't want to be redundant, but I would like to basically go over a document that was published October 18th, agenda item number 92, and it speaks to the school resource officers, the SROs. I was here approximately 2 weeks ago and couldn't believe what I saw, so I'd like to kind of reenact as far as what should have been said. And basically, it was noted that the meeting, the SRO positions might go away or did go away. I don't want to appear to be a broken record, but I do want to note that the SROs in your particular document are essential as far as crime prevention and intervention issues in both the schools and the community. I also want to note that they work closely with schools, students, and staff, community members to build relationships. I also want to note as far as the driving governance, prevention of minimizing property damage in the school and surrounding areas, prevention of school injuries, and even deaths due to violence, drug overdose, reduce the needs for 911 calls, reduce the likelihood for criminal records for students, increase the likelihood that students will receive mental health issues if necessary, and increase the feelings of safety among students and staff. I would request that the board reconsider or review as far as your particular document dated October 18th, 2018, agenda item number 9.2, and review the SRO, and I believe that they are essential as far as keeping the peace. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next 4 speakers will be Rich Vasquez, Michelle Tebbs, Edgar Solano, and Mayra Solano.
Good evening, Mr. Vasquez.
Good evening, President Ryan, Superintendent Aguilar, members of the board. Come here today to bring light on the Hiram Johnson baseball field. There is, there's no field on campus, so, that's kind of, it brings a lot of challenges for, for our kids. We see it, we appreciate the football field, it's brought, school spirit, school, we're bringing us up, but we need all our athletes to feel that way. My kids didn't have sports in elementary school, so we're moving up through, now we're in high school, and then you come to high school, if they didn't have sports in elementary or whatever before, now you come to a field and it's trash, that ain't gonna build them up, that ain't gonna make them feel confident in playing. And again, school spirit, they walk a block or a couple blocks away to the field, it's not on our school site. You're not gonna have no school spirit, and what do you think those kids are feeling when they seen the whole football field come? You service those kids, that's good, but we got a lot of other stuff going down. Let me see. And then once again, like I said, we appreciate the football field. That is great. I've been to, since we've been on high school campus, I've been to over 100 sporting events at different campuses, and our facilities are really lacking compared to every other district, every other school that I've been to. We walk on the campus, we say, hey, look at the architecture, look how great it looks, look how that makes you feel good. Especially coming from poor kids, we want to go, we want to see great things, feel good. You guys, like I said, you did the football field, that's great. You repaved the parking lot, that's great. I didn't know that happened. I came in the first day, I was like, wow, thank you, that made me feel great. Once the office gets open, that's going to make us feel great. Like I said, and we can't do it halfway. We did repave the tennis courts, but I haven't been out there, but I looked and you have this wooden plywood. So I'm looking out there, I'm like, oh, nothing's going on, it looks disgusting. But the surface is repaved, but how do I know that unless you go out there?
Mr. Vasquez, are you combining your time with
For
another
a couple of them,
commenter?
yes.
Okay, can you add, for 2 others, you're saying?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay.
That's part on the facilities. Also had a couple things with the teacher vacancies. My child still does not have a math teacher, so we're, how many days? 13 days into the second quarter. Our school site needs help. I don't know how that's going to work if we don't have teachers. I'm looking at the SARC reports, 16-17, 2 vacant teachers, 17-18, 1, 18-19, 3, 15-16, 7 vacant teachers. We're filling those statistics now, right? How are we going to get better? We looking at the reports, well, that's the statistics now, that's 3 years ago. Like you said, we can't get better, we can't move forward unless my kids have teachers. That's just mind-boggling. So again, we need to start pushing this calendar change, right? Every other district's moving ahead. They get all the quality, they get all the good people, everybody's getting their jobs done, and then we get left with what? Probably nothing, right? Because we still don't got teachers coming for our positions. So no one wants to come here. You leave our positions up all year. Who's going for them? Obviously nobody. Who wants to come to the most struggling site? Nobody, right? When are you guys going to help us? When is it going to change? Well, we're going to keep banging on the door now because that's the only way it's going to happen, correct? And again, like you said, you guys are doing good work, but myself, I'm living generational poverty, generational single parenting. I need better. My kids need better, right? I have a child at West Campus. She did hard work. Now I have a child at Hiram Johnson. How do you think she feels? Right? You're going into the worst site and you don't have teachers. That ain't making a kid feel good, right? Now I have to keep saying, oh, it's okay, it's okay. What's okay? Nothing ain't okay, but I have to keep telling her that just so she has some confidence in what's going on. So, and like I said, good work, but I can't be satisfied because I only have 4 years left, and this is prime time for my kid and my bloodline. If it don't happen here, when is it going to happen? This is the time we need help. I appreciate it. We keep moving forward. So good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vasquez.
Nothing?
Mike? Okay.
Playoffs practicing.
Right. My son's been
We're going
playing.
to one second, we'll reset the clock, please.
My son's been playing baseball since he was 4, and that's all he wants to do in life. And so, not having the proper facilities, no batting cages, for him to be scouted is almost impossible. I have to pay to go outside places for him to do all those, for him to be able to get better. He has a great coach. Coach Hammer is fabulous, and he's done a lot with the program, and the principal and everybody backs him. But they need a field. They need a field bad, and if that could happen, that would be great. Oh yeah, playoffs because we're piggybacking with a little league field down the way. So when playoffs come, we only get to practice 45 minutes because we have to share the field with little league. So it dampened our playoff season last year. So it was rough.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you.
So I know that Mr. Browning's coming back, and this will be an item that we'll be discussing later in the agenda. I want to thank the board for pooling resources that could have been spread out across board member areas to be able to put the significant investment into the Hiram Johnson football field and practice track. I think later on in our presentation, we'll be able to answer whether or not this next facilities bond would give us the capacity to do upgrades such as the Hiram Johnson baseball field, since we've exhausted our funds for the athletics upgrades.
Board President Ryan, we do have 3 additional public comments.
Okay, thank you.
From Garrett Kirkland, Trudy Moore, and Maria Rodriguez.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank our parents for coming out and fighting for what our kids need. It's true, we are lacking the baseball field. We are also here to advocate for the bond going forward so that we can start to level the playing field. We do have some Title IX issues that we need to address on our campus where we have some facilities for girls and not boys. But I really appreciate our parents coming forward and advocating. I know that the parents you see in front of you tonight are advocate contributors to our campus, and I tell them all the time, I need that line of parents pushing for what their kids deserve. So I appreciate them coming out tonight. I'm going to advocate for the bond and ask you to let us know what we can do as a community to support it because we're in desperate need. Absolutely. I will tell you we are making moves on the tennis wall, but the baseball diamond is nowhere close in terms of what we can do with our budget. So thank you very much, and I appreciate all your hard work, and we have plenty more to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kirkland.
Good evening, board members and superintendent. I wanted to let you know I am still waiting to receive responsive records to my California Public Records Act requests. I've been waiting for 4 months for answers. On October 3rd, your policy and government manager, Mr. Nathaniel Browning, refused to answer basic questions about the McClatchy High School track closure in August, as if what happened was something top secret that he needed to hide from the public. And he instead demanded that I make written CPRA requests when the law does not require written requests. He denied receiving my first request, which I hand-delivered to him on October 3rd. He didn't respond, so I was forced to make additional requests. I received no 10-day letter as required by law for any of my requests. 30 days later, Mr. Browning wrote that he was denying my requests because in his mind they were irrelevant, which is an unlawful reason to withhold records. Mr. Browning next blamed email server problems that didn't occur until November 1st. He denied having responsive records such as an organizational chart, duty statements, job classification specifications, and contact information for his superiors. Mr. Browning withheld text messages, erroneously believing they aren't public records. As a result, Mr. Browning's credibility is very low, causing the community to believe he may be unlawfully withholding other records. Your attorney, Mr. Raul Bazio, refuses to talk with me. We are concerned that the school district is, by its own conduct, teaching our students that obeying the law is not important, transparency in government is not important, and some people, district staff, are above the law. District staff are not and should not be above the law. They should obey the law like the rest of us. If Mr. Browning had simply answered some basic questions, the district would not have the increased workload that Mr. Browning caused. We hope you will take steps to ensure your staff comply with the law and be worthy of their position. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, President Ryan, Superintendent Aguilar, and members of the school board. My name is Maria Rodriguez, and I am in my last year as a parent in SCUSD. So they say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And since tonight I have at least 9,000 words that I'd like to say in barely 2 minutes, I'm passing around some pictures that are very meaningful to you. I hope you'll each take one and wonder what is behind the story of that picture. I chose to keep one for myself, and this is a picture of me and my children's 4th grade teacher, Miss Chedoritsky. She essentially voluntarily led the band for 4th graders, 5th graders, and 6th graders, and teaches our youngest students how to play music in a collaborative way. My sons played piano, but it's different playing it in a collaborative way. And I wondered, what if all schools had that opportunity? What if Sacramento School District was a district that actually did something different and encouraged music? So I was surprised when I was doing my homework for the LCAP pack, and I was reading this report from PACE that you've probably read about the implications of budget issues on policy. And towards the end, close to the recommendations, and I'm gonna have to read fast, in the part where it says investing in district's equity agenda, it says to invest in improving outcomes for historically underserved student populations, the district will need to find cost savings and make hard choices about how to shift money. And then it goes on to say, if they did this, at that level of funding, it might be able to offer every student music instruction with a certificated teacher once per week. I was so surprised. Like, they could talk about anything, and these policy experts, wondered, what if we actually let students have music early on? I just want to say my son was really quiet when he was in elementary school, so I wanted him to be in band in high school because I knew it would give him a community. I wish I could tell you more about that story, but he got that community, and I am so thankful. And what if every student had that? And have a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thank
You guys
you.
put in a lot of time.
Thank you very much. So do we have any other public comments at
No
this
additional
time?
comments.
Thank you. Moving on to item 9.0, Board Workshop Strategic Plan and Other Initiatives. Item 9.1, College Going Update. Tonight's update will be provided by Vincent Harris and Christina Espinoza.
Yeah, go ahead. At least everyone was talking.
Really? Okay.
Good evening, Board President Ryan, Board members, Superintendent Aguilar. My name is Vincent Harris, and Chief of Continuous Improvement and Accountability. I'm joined by a distinguished group of other district employees and staff to share with you tonight some of our very specific and intentional efforts to support our college going efforts. You know, college going as a topic is a very intensive one. And so tonight we're actually going to really focus on the strand of supporting our students in terms of what they need right now. And that's the application processes, particularly for our California State Universities and University of California, which both have a due date of November 30th. And so this evening's presentation will really be geared towards talking intentionally about some of the work that we're doing currently within the system. And so you'll hear about the work of our counselors. You'll actually hear of the work of our youth development department supporting our students as well. And then we'll wrap up with a conversation about some of the actual intentional work at our sites. This slide is just mentally sent to reinforce the powerful partnerships that we have with our institutions of higher education. And on this slide, you see some of the institutions that work most closely with us through a joint agreement, actually, data sharing. Sacramento State University, Stingers Up, University of California, Davis, University of California, Merced, and really equally important, Los Rios Community College District. All of these higher education partners have really been intentional in supporting our students through the years, and we've actually been leveraging those relationships more intentionally in the last couple of years through our data sharing agreement. With that, I'll turn the presentation over to our Director of Guidance and Counseling, Christina Espinoza, and she'll take you more deeply into some of the data that's taking place right now.
Good evening, everyone. So very briefly, this slide pretty much speaks to the entire matriculation process that our high school seniors have to navigate. So starting with whether or not they're on track for graduation, whether or not they've met the minimum eligibility requirements for UC-CSU, through the, taking the college entrance exams. And then our ultimate goal is to not only get them into a post-secondary institution, but also getting them through that post-secondary institution. So we currently are in the process of supporting our students with the UCCSU application and also submitting the FAFSA application. So that window a couple of years ago opened up in October. So we've been able to support students with the 3 processes all at once. Our PATI, our college-going culture element, this is essentially how, as a system, we're tracking the number of students who meet the criteria. Specifically, I want to focus on the second one, where we're really working alongside our counselors to ensure that our students are competitively eligible for these systems. So we're encouraging them to take as many A through G courses if they so choose to pursue a post-secondary education, and then ultimately ensuring that they're completing the FAFSA. And this is also something that we work with our administrators on at each one of the school sites so that they know as a site where they are in terms of their college-going culture or building one. Last year, we sent out the college eligibility letters. We did so as well this year with feedback from our youth development department and students. They asked that we distribute this information at the school level versus sending it out in the mail to ensure that they received it. So all of our students through classrooms received a personalized college eligibility packet, which gave them a summary of what their academic profile was and highlighted colleges and universities that they should consider applying to based on students that looked just like them who had enrolled in these colleges and universities. So we sent these out in mid-October to all of our seniors again this year. Just very briefly, just as a reminder, all of our counselors are actively monitoring whether or not students are on track for A through G via our A through G monitoring tool. So this gives you gives the counselors an idea of who's on track and who is not on track, and is able to respond promptly and onto whether or not they have to take additional courses in order to meet the A through G requirements, and also determine the total number of A through G units they've completed, so you can determine whether or not they're competitively eligible. This is another dashboard that our team has access to. So we leverage the MOU that we have with our local partners, and we upload data on a regular basis. And then when we receive confirmation that a student has applied to, for example, Sac State, we turn the dashboard in that particular segment in green, so we can confirm that the students have submitted an application. And then we also populate, based on the matriculation steps for that particular segment, what has been completed. So in this particular case, this particular student is on track for A through G. We have the GPA listed, and we know that the student applied to CSU and submitted a UC application. So I just spoke to you about the data uploads. With Los Rios, this year, we've been very intentional about collecting data based on the cohort of students that were at any one of our campuses at the beginning of the year. We don't necessarily have historical trends because of some limitations related to the data integrity, essentially. But what I can share with you is that for this last year, for the graduating class of 2019, we had a total of 1,300 applicants to all Los Rios campuses. If you move to the right, we'll focus on those who completed an application to Sac State, and subsequently, the number of students who actually enrolled this fall at Sac City College. Correction, this is Sac City, not Sac State. So we had a total of 639 students actually enroll this fall at Sac City, but we cannot confirm exactly to compare from the year prior for our fall 2000 or our spring 2018 graduates, whether or not 1,300 is an increase based on previous numbers. So this year we'll have a solid baseline moving forward so that we can see the impact really of the or the Los Rios Promise or the California Promise, right? We don't know exactly what that impact is currently. So moving towards our Sac State numbers, and it's relevant because if you notice, this is historical data of the number of students who have applied, have been admitted, ultimately matriculated, enrolled at Sac State. And you'll see that for the applications, we saw a decrease in the fall of 2019 data, so this last year. Anecdotally, I've heard from campuses, from counselors, from students that they were taking advantage of the community college opportunity of free tuition, but we cannot confirm that yet. So we're working with our partners at Los Rios to confirm that information. And this is the same data from UC Davis. So if you go from left to right, you'll see that there was a slight dip in the number of applications, but we saw a slight increase in the number of admits to UC Davis locally, and then ultimately the numbers who have the students who have enrolled. And now we'll speak to the work that's currently underway. So that's historical data. Currently, this is just a very brief summary of the supports that sites are offering our students, whether it's via college information workshops or hands-on application workshops. They have been working dutifully to support or create more opportunities for our students. So this is just a brief summary of the events that have been hosted or supports that have been hosted as of a couple of weeks ago. This is not an exhaustive list. They're actively working and pulling students out of classroom to provide supports. And now, this year, we had the opportunity to partner with youth development, which is slightly different than we've done in the past. So I'll let Mr. Dillon speak to some of the exciting work that they've been doing.
Good evening, board, and thank you. I'm very excited to be able to share with you some of the exciting work that's happening as a result of the partnership that we have with Christina and using some of the funding that is a result of the Gates Foundation grant that our district was awarded. So through that, we were able to hire 5 amazing individuals who are some alumni of Sac City Unified School District, who are current college students and have become our college mentors. I'm gonna take a brief moment and let them introduce themselves.
Oh, amazing.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cole Carmen. I graduated from Pittsburgh High School in the Bay Area in 2015, and I'm currently a graduating senior at Sacramento State. Right now, I'm in the process of applying for my master's in urban education at Florida International University, and my high school sites are Hiram Johnson, the Met, and American Legion.
Wonderful.
Good evening, board. Thank you for having us. My name is Lang Vang. I'm a current senior at UC Davis. I graduated from Franklin High School in Stockton. My plan is to become a teacher after college, and I'm currently helping seniors at Luther Burbank and George Washington Carver High School.
Great. Hello, my name is Natasha Tarleton. I am an alumni of Arthur A. Benjamin Health Professions High School and an alumni from UC Davis. I am currently applying to Sac State at the School Counseling Master's Program for this upcoming fall, and my assignment is at Rosemont High School and Health Professions High School.
Wonderful. I love it.
Hi, my name is Murphy Donahue. I went to a School of Engineering and Sciences for middle school and high school. I am currently in my last semester at Sacramento State, getting my BA in sociology. I plan to pursue a master's degree in academic counseling, and my sites are School of Engineering and Sciences and JFK.
Good afternoon, board members. I had the privilege of going to Leonardo da Vinci K-8, had a wonderful time there, and also graduated from West Campus High School, class of 2017. So thank you guys for the work you were doing. I'm going to Sac State right now. I'm a film studies major, so Blockbuster's on the way. And thank you guys. I really have the privilege of working with these young people, so thank you.
And also a member of our African American Achievement Task Force. Thank you for your service there.
And as you can see, amazing group of young adults, and we are very excited about the work that's to come. I am, for the sake of time, going to actually go through just some of our pieces of work, and feel free to ask questions about some of the additional work that's happening. On average, they're working about 16 hours a week, because they have hectic school schedules as well. So we're working around those schedules being flexible, and they do have assigned sites that they mentioned. So they are assigned to different high schools throughout the district where they will be supporting our seniors and making sure that they're prepared for college and prepared for the next steps, and then also supporting them through the matriculation steps as we go into our new year. They are adamantly working right now and making phone calls and reaching out to our families to make sure that they've received their college eligibility packets, to make sure that they understand the contents of the packet, to offer any supports that they may need or require. And currently, they've reached 150 families. They've left 250 voicemails, and they have a large targeted list that they're still contacting daily. They're also meeting with students in person. So they're going to the campuses and they're meeting with some of those students to determine what are their next steps and their plans, and then supporting them with that. They are also hosting college cafes that are going to be drop-in spaces during the after-school and expanded learning space where students can come in and get support with their applications and ask questions. So very excited about that. The last piece is they are a part of the team that's helping to develop a sister campaign to our Be Here campaign, which is the chronic absenteeism campaign. It's going to be called Get There. So our Get There campaign, the motto is ready for what's next. So the goal is to create a college-going culture on our campuses through this campaign. These students are working hard on that, and we also have we've been very fortunate to be able to partner with a professor from Sacramento State Communications Department who has given us some of her senior graduating students who are going to also help us with developing that. So we meet with them weekly as well. So a lot of exciting things to come. We are really excited to continue to work with Christina and the counseling department to make sure that all of our students are ready for what's next. Thank you.
Good evening again. Come on up here, Jill, please. Hi again. I'm Principal Garrett Kirkland from Johnson High School. This is Jill Tom, one of our assistant principals. We're going to tell you a little bit of how we approach the process, and then I'm going to come back and tell you where we stand and what we hope to finish up with. We are going to be starting with how we approached prior to the PSAT, how we moved through the PSAT, and up into our current state.
Good evening. So one exciting thing we did was on the PSAT day, we saw an opportunity while the freshmen, sophomores, and juniors were testing. We saw an opportunity to get creative about how we would support our seniors with their college-going efforts. And we took them in periods 1 through 4 and ran them through 4 different sessions in order to help get them started focusing on their application process. So they had a session that talked about CSU, community college. We got them all launched in CCGI so they could start their college application process, and a session on the FAFSA. The thing that I liked most about this was that in the afternoon, after lunch, when the underclassmen were finished with the PSAT, we did 2 school-wide lessons in periods 5 and 6. So every single student logged on to CCGI and did some student surveys and got a taste of what's coming as they progress through high school.
Amazing.
I just want to wrap up real quick. I'll tell you that last year when we had the PSA opportunity, we sent the upperclassmen to colleges and universities. This year we decided to include the 11th graders with the test because they're the ones that needed the practice for the SAT. And we included them and kept our seniors on campus to make that secondary workshop happen. I will tell you, you see some of the things we do regularly with EAOP, CalSOAP, College Track, Junior Rise. I'll let you read that to save time. But in the end, I want to tell you where we stand right now. We have 138 A to G eligible students. Currently, we've completed 95 applications. We've only had 5 opt-outs. We believe we're going to be somewhat near 130 out of 138 when it's all said and done. And so we're optimistic to see those charts rise. So next time Ms. Espinoza shows you to them, we'll have pushed that number up. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you so much, Garrett. We're going to take public comment at this time, and then
We have
questions.
no public comment.
So we have no public comment. So we have 10 minutes for Q&A from our board members. And if you can just pause it after board members ask their questions. Hold on one second. Our first question is from board member Minnick.
Awesome. Thanks. This is really cool to see, and I am especially excited at all the mentors who are working with our students, and especially how many of you are, that you've returned to the schools that you went to? That's really cool. And that our small schools are being represented. I think a lot of times we think that they don't need it because they have, might have a closer student to teacher ratio, but they need it too. My daughter goes to the Met, and so I'm excited to know that you're out there helping those students. This is really exciting for me. I mean, this is the year my daughter is applying to colleges, and I talked to Member Ang Olson on the way in about college applications. It's exciting and stressful time, I think, for students and also for parents. But we got that letter of eligibility home too, and it's exciting to have some real stuff coming home and highlighting all the work that they've done and where it's taking them. I just had a couple questions. One of the things that I think Ms. Espinosa you mentioned was about in one of the slides, it talked about like knowing which students, like when they had applied to Sac State or Los Rios or whatever, and you had like a green mark for those. How do you have that? Is that because of our data sharing agreement, or is that on self-report? Like,
so currently we have the uploads directly from Sac State, but that is limited to those students who only apply to Sac State. There are a number of students who apply to other campuses that perhaps don't apply to Sac State, but through California colleges, when students link their accounts, we're able to identify all of the CSUs and community colleges that our students apply to. So we upload those on a weekly basis as well, and then are able to populate our tools with exactly where our students applied.
So for those other schools, is that something that students need to choose to do, or is that something that happens once they connect based
Once
to
they
get
connect,
their transcripts?
yes. Once they connect, it automatically feeds to us which colleges, which applications they started, or it'll show us whether or not it's in progress and once it's completed.
Because over time, as we populate more and more information, it's going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome to see. My other question is, and we heard this from Hiram Johnson about the support for FAFSA at your event. You had mentioned it too, and I was wondering what are the supports that we are providing kind of district-wide for kids around FAFSA? Because I think there's still, I was the first person in my family to go to college. I was kind of discouraged from going to college, which is why I went at like 30. But so a lot of parents don't know. So and a lot of it has to do with money because people don't always realize. And so I'm curious what is it that we're doing to make sure that our students know what's available and how to access it.
So we have a pretty strong partnership with CalSoap, who currently coordinates all of our Cash for College workshops. So essentially, these are workshops that are promoted countywide, and our sites host those. So that's an opportunity for our families to come and participate, receive information and direct support with the FAFSA. Our counselors are also pulling students out of class to do some of that work and hosting after school sessions as well. And we've worked with Sean Alexander with the FACE program here centrally as well to host an informational session here with our parents as well. And that was about a few weeks ago, and we had a pretty good turnout for that. So our sites are promoting the events and hosting support workshops before and after school.
Awesome. Well, thanks for doing all this work.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it, all of you.
And as we go to our next board member comment, really proud that Christina Espinosa did not say we have increased our FAFSA completion rates in the last 2 years from 42% to 69% as a result of the efforts, a 27% point gain, 47 to 69, 22% gain. Board Member Garcia.
Yes, thank you. Well, it's great to hear all the great things that are going at Hiram, and then the students coming back. I think that's very powerful. Also, the first one in my family to go to college and trying to navigate the financial aid application process, the college application process. It's just overwhelming when you don't have someone to help you. So thank you for your commitment and coming back. I did want to go back to the FAFSA piece because I was recently at a college affordability summit last week, and I heard a number that is still stuck in my head, which is that we're leaving $500 million on the table in terms of aid in grant support. And FAFSA is more than just financial aid based on income eligibility and other eligibility criteria. It's also sort of a gateway to grants, scholarships for higher income kids. So I want to make sure that that we're not leaving any student behind, that we're opening that door for every single student and let somebody else say no to them rather than them not being able to apply for that aid. So I wanted to revisit something that I thought I had asked about or for several months ago regarding exploring the opportunity for Sac City Unified to change board policy in terms of graduation requirements and requiring the completion, not the submission, because there's a big difference between submission and completion, the completion of the FAFSA as a graduation requirement. And it's not to it wouldn't withhold a degree from a student. It would simply make it, it's only adding value to their graduation journey. So I want to know maybe from staff where we're at with that particular conversation and implementing that policy so that we can make sure that every single student is applying for FAFSA and we're not leaving money on the table.
You want to give an update from last night?
To speak to. So to your question, Board Member Garcia, actually, staff did have a conversation with the Board Policy Committee this week. And of course, the Board Policy members can speak to the next steps. But we did have a robust conversation about exactly the notion of FAFSA as a graduation requirement, discuss pros and cons and kind of the current context. Because to your point, obviously, it's a national conversation. And so we talked about some of the conditions of readiness for it.
Okay,
Board
I'm
Member
sorry.
Vang, do you want to respond?
Yes, I need more specificity.
Yeah, so the conversation in the policy committee was that we would, I think staff shared a really good PowerPoint at the last meeting, and what we requested was that to be shared with all board members. So not just within the policy committee, but that for us to also revisit this and bring it outside of the policy committee to have a larger conversation with the entire board around the requirement for FAFSA. And so we've requested for that to come back to the full board and not just a policy discussion, so that the board can actually have a robust conversation around the requirement and actually move in that direction. And so that's what we're planning to do. I don't know when it will come. February, we're thinking. Yeah. So.
Okay, I appreciate. Oh, go ahead.
Superintendent Aguilar, I think you started to respond.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, essentially, we were asked by the policy committee as part of an agendized item to present what we have done with respect to FAFSA completion. Member Garcia, as well as some follow-up in terms of our analysis based on discussion we had with Valverde Unified School District in terms of how they implemented and such. How Louisiana implemented statewide, and then again, as Mr. Harris indicated, in our context locally, what might be the conditions of readiness to prepare for implementation if that were a policy that that came from the board or that was legislated by the legislature.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that we're going to have a much larger conversation about that proposal. I think it's important, and I think it only helps students. I also think that it brings in a level of a standard access across the district. Right now, we may have pockets of certain sites doing a really, really good job, and other sites still not being sort of at that level in terms of having these workshops, in terms of having students apply for FAFSA and submitting their college applications, thinking about maybe how to leverage CCGI in terms of pre-populating information into a FAFSA application so students can don't have to do as much. So really trying to just pull any lever that we currently have to advance the readiness. To make sure, again, that all students have access to apply for FAFSA, because it's just not income It's also scholarships and also helps more of our middle-class families in our district. So, but thank you. Thank you for the great work that you're doing, and this is very exciting.
So we have about 4 minutes left for comments. Board Member Pritchett, followed by Board Member Vang.
Thank you, President Ryan. I appreciate the conversation from my colleagues. And I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate the work that you're all doing, and congratulations on the high numbers of our students that are now completing the FAFSA. I know it'll make a huge difference. I guess I really just have one request, and that is it. When we at our school sites have our college fairs or workshops such as this, I would like to request that we have a table with somebody manning it from the building trades. And the reason why I'm asking this is because I think that I truly believe that every one of our students should have the right to go to college. I came from a family that did not push college on, which is why I'm in college now as a grown woman, which I'm graduating in a few weeks. And but I also think that college is not for everyone, right? And many of our schools right now are offering our ECD programs that are teaching our students some hands-on skills. So I think that we should also be educating the parents that are coming to these workshops of what other programs are out there where our students could be making a decent wage. So if you could also, maybe with our staff, working with the building trades of getting them out at these events as well. That's my only request. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Morawski.
Hi, thank you for your presentation and for all of you being here tonight. I just wanted to ask a quick clarifying question about some of the slides. I don't see page numbers, but the slide, the graphs of seniors who were admitted, matriculated, and enrolled. There's one for CSU and one for UC Davis. If you could just help me interpret these slides, and does it relate back to anything we've done with the college packets?
I would hope that we would see some of the increases, or we could attribute some of the increases. What I can share with you is that last year we did survey our seniors and asked. The idea behind the packets was that they would consider applying to colleges that they were matched to. And we asked a question of students on whether or not the packets influenced their decision on which colleges they apply to. And we saw about 15% of the seniors who completed that survey indicated that it did. So this fall, when we administer that survey again, we're hoping that we see an increase in that number. I think naturally we will, because I think it got into the hands of more students because we didn't mail it. So, so I'm hoping that that will influence the numbers. But again, we'll have to wait until we get all of the college application data to analyze where our kids applied to see, you know, what our fall 2020 data will look like. But these slides, from left to right, for the last 3 years, it'll tell you who, how many students in this particular one applied to Sac State, how many of those students were admitted, how many matriculated. So that means they did everything that they needed to do in order to step foot on the campus, and then ultimately enrolled. So you'll see that there's a drop off, and that's a lot of the work that our college mentors helped us with this last summer with addressing the summer melt.
And so the years are 29, I'm just trying to follow the years, 2019, 2018, then 2017?
Yes, the gray is 17, 17 from left to right.
So is it going backwards in time, or am I just reading it wrong? The blue is this year.
Yes.
So I should be like if.
Yes, and just note that this is fall enrollment. So this is higher ed, you know, that they enrolled in higher ed or applied for fall of 2019. So that's referring to our graduate class of 2019.
Okay, freshmen in college.
Yes.
2019. Okay.
Sorry, we should have clarified that.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I would just request then maybe next time to have the graphs go in chronological order? Or is there something I'm missing about the way? Is there something particular to these graphs that threw me off too? Okay, okay. Just it's a normal convention, so I'd appreciate next time because it did throw me for a loop.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Board Member Wu.
Thank you. I was just wondering, it's kind of late now, but the Black Expo, College Expo on Saturday, where is it going to be and what time?
College Expo is at Sac State, and it's from, I believe, 9 to 3 p.m., I believe, this Saturday at Sac State in the pavilion.
And is it like years past where we had it on our campuses with the HBCUs?
Okay, so there's two events. So what you're referring to is the HBCU College Fair that is hosted typically in early September. As of last year, Sac State and a consortium has hosted the Black College Expo in addition to our annual HBCU College Fair. That one is going to be hosted this Saturday.
Okay.
At the Sac State campus.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to. Thank you, Board Member Wu. I have a couple questions and comments, and you didn't stop the clock when the staff was presenting, so I would add 2 minutes to that, and then we'll have some final comments from the superintendent. So first, I just want to thank you, Ms. Espinoza, for all of your incredible work, including the impact of master scheduling, which has resulted in a significant increase in the number of students who are four-year college eligible, including a 7% gain for our Latinx students. I cannot talk enough about the importance of the data sharing MOU. So, I think in addition to an increase in enrollment in Los Rios, I think what we are seeing as a result of AB 705 is direct placement into transfer level math and English is increasing, and I'm really excited to see that data now that we're looking at that cohort. I just recently had a conversation with President Nelson at Sac State, and he wants me to relay this message, which is we are sending them prepared students. So as you know, with the executive order at the CSU level, remediation was removed from the CSU system. Sac City students are going directly into college level at Sac State, and they're succeeding, and he wants us to know that. And so that's a big deal. I do want to say a couple things on the college eligibility packets. I would like to suggest that if they are not going directly in the mail to families, that we include some sort of promise or pathways form that families sign that acknowledges receipt that students would bring back. I think that's simple. I've seen that as a best practice in other districts. It'll be helpful to our amazing college ambassadors. I also want to suggest that we incorporate a cost of college calculator in our tools that we're developing and on the website. I'll tell you, I have one at the Campaign for College Opportunity that we've developed. I'm concerned that this chart that we're looking at that's showing a decline in CSU enrollment is a direct correlation to a free tuition promise at community colleges. And when students are hearing that, they're quite possibly undermatching. I think we're seeing this. And so they need to know with the cost of, total cost of attendance calculator that actually it will be an increased time to degree if you look at historical trends, and that time away from the workforce and increased time to degree will result in a more costly education, even with the free tuition at community college. We have to empower students with that information. So I'm really hoping that we can incorporate those things and looking forward to working with you to do that. And then I just finally want to say I'm so grateful to the work that we're doing to push our college-going culture down into the school district at all levels and for families, and all of the tools that we're putting in place, such as the California College Guidance Initiative, to simplify our ability to track progress and identify when students are off track. So Superintendent Aguilar has a couple questions or comments now.
Thank you, President Ryan. I realized that because we had some slides that focused on FAFSA, that there was a lot of interest in that topic, and I promised that we can come back to you at a future date and just have a conversation about FAFSA. But I wanted to just finish off this conversation with this image of our Performance and Targeted Action Index, because I want to be able to recognize as a board how difficult this work is, and really that the application piece is just one element that we're monitoring. Our focus on student achievement is reflected in this element of our index, in that if you were to ask Principal Kirkland whether it's easy or difficult to, for example, focus on increasing the population of students that is eligible, competitively eligible, which is in that second column. And competitive eligibility, as you know, is usually defined as having 19 A to G units, not 15. So imagine being a high school principal leading wonderful staff trying to think about how do we increase the percentage of our seniors who are on track and will graduate with 19 A to G units is no easy task unless we're focusing on student achievement. And if we were to do that, we are now holding ourselves accountable to make sure that students are applying to colleges and universities that match their academic profiles, which is why we will have to come back, Member Morowski, once we have a final data set to see whether or not the change idea of introducing packets that tell every student, here's where you ought to consider applying, was actually a successful change idea to implement, to impact this portion of the index. And as you know, our commitment to continuous improvement is very strong. Because Ms. Espinoza talked about this being a Gates-funded effort, we will be part of a white paper from the Gates Foundation on this effort that we've now embarked on. But I just want to make sure that everybody focuses on how this is part of a comprehensive initiative and effort to make sure that we have fewer students who are only eligible to apply to a community college, more students who are eligible to apply to more colleges and universities, at increasing that pool of eligible students, and then monitoring whether or not those students are applying to matched schools, not as a requirement, but certainly as proof that we are exposing and informing and empowering our students with valuable information. So we will dig in very closely at our data set once it's complete to try to better understand why it is that we're seeing an increase in community college application and enrollment and a decrease at four-year colleges and universities, and whether it is impacted by your instincts around the College Promise Initiative as well. And we look forward to coming back with that report.
Thank you, Superintendent Aguilar, and thank you to all of the staff who've contributed to this wonderful work. And I am so encouraged by seeing many of our alumni coming back and contributing to promoting a college-going culture with our youth in Sac City Unified. Continue the great work.
Thank you.
That was an item for information only. Item 9.2, the American Indian Education Program. This evening, it will be presented by Christina P.C. Narvaez and Marcus Struther.
Respected board members, President Ryan and Superintendent Aguilar, at this time, I'll invite the youth to come up and they're going to perform their song.
Lovely.
yo. Hey yo, hey, 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 hey yo, hey. Hey yo, hey 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 yo, hey yo. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. I was told that that was a song of resiliency, which is a perfect description of our youth and our Native families. So I would be amiss if I didn't acknowledge the Indian people of California and Sacramento. We are currently on the ancestral homelands of the Maidu, Miwok, Wintun, Wintu, Patwin, and Nisenan tribes. This land is rich in the history of survival, resilience, beauty, and tenacity of California Indian tribes. And I would also like to acknowledge our parent committee. Without our parent committee and our partners, this program would not be in existence, and we wouldn't have the programs that we currently have without their participation and their partnership. Okay, so what is the American Indian Education Program? Our program is a federally funded grant, and it's funded under the Indian Education Formula Grant, and it's designed to address the unique and cultural, language, and educationally related needs of American Indian and Alaska Native students. And the overarching goal is to ensure that all students meet the challenging state academic standards. The data distinction. So this is a very important part that I wanted to focus on. So this is for the 2018-19 school year. And last year in the grant, we submitted 141 students that completed the 506 form. The completion of this form enrolls them in our program. And so that was only 141 students. And the programming and services that we provide are that we're talking about today are for those students. But the district currently has, and this is the data that gets reported out to the state, has 200, or for that year, had 235 students listed as American Indian only. And then there's also around 794 students that have checked American Indian at some point. And then this does not include students whenever I'm going to look and recruit for students who check yes to Hispanic don't show up in those counts. So the only way that we can get their information is if they come to us. So whenever we go to pull their data, they don't show up in there. And so that's an important piece to understand and know. And I think later on we'll talk about the 506 form and the requirements for that. And so the grant requirements. So the requirement is that they fill out a 506 eligibility form, and that form requires students that the student themselves, the parent, or their grandparent be enrolled in a federally recognized tribe. And so the history in California, the disenrollment, not the disenrollment, but then the termination of tribes, all of that, it's different in California. And so some of our students, California students, Indian students are able to enroll under, like they have the BIA forms that they can fill out or different things for eligibility. But if the student isn't enrolled in a tribe, sometimes they're deterred from filling out those 506 forms. And they request documentation from a tribal organization that they have it filled out. So sometimes it can be a harder thing for our families to have the documentation to provide to enroll by using that form. The grant requires that we have meaningful collaboration with local tribes, and the tribe that we work with is built in Rancheria, and we do often partnerships and things with them throughout the school year, and I don't know if they're here in attendance today. I don't think they are. And it requires that we have a parent-student advisory committee, and they must sign off on the grant, and we have a full functioning advisory committee. And the grant is applied for annually. And the funding changes depending on the number of students that we have enrolled.
Budget for the 2018-19 school year was $29,386, and for the 19-20 school year is $35,000, $35,77. The program is overseen by one program associate, that's me, and I have additional job duties under various grants in the department, as I work under the Youth Development Department, and we have one per diem staff, and she works 15 hours a week. Title for this year, Title IV funding, this is new to this year, is allowing for additional tutoring for our students and allowing there to be tribal educators in the classroom at teachers' request. That's new to this year also. Objectives and measures. The objectives of our program are to increase knowledge and a cultural identity and awareness, and we're measuring that by focus groups and participation. Increase school attendance, and we use attendance data to measure that. Increase academic achievement, and we use SBAC scores to measure that. And we increase graduation rate, and it's just measured by the number of students graduating. So for the 18-19 school year, some of the services that we provided were a gardening and agricultural series using traditional knowledge and history, and this was a partnership that we did with the Intertribal Agricultural Council and the Colonial Heights Library and Wilton Rancheria. We did a book study with, we used Native literature by Native authors, and that was for our 7th to 12th grade students, and then during that time, we also invited our younger youth to come in and for homework help during this time, and that was a 5-week series. And the person who came in and helped us with leading the book study, he's a Native literature professor at Chico State University, Calvin Hedrick. We had a summer program, and we did that in partnership with the Indian education programs, Elk Grove Unified, Washington Unified, and Wilton Rancheria. And that summer program was a week-long program, and for our K through 12 students. We also do tutoring and homework help using the provider Total Education Services. And for the 18-19 school year, each student that enrolled for services, they received 1 hour of tutoring per week. We also have a Native Youth Leadership Council, which you met today, and we were able to discuss some of the things that they do. We have field trips. So last year we had field trips to local colleges and universities. So they attended the American Indian College Motivation Day at Sac State, and they have a large college fair and career fair there, and we took students there, and we also took them to the Native Student Empowerment Conference at UC Davis, and that's hosted by the American Indian Recruitment and Retention Center. We hosted workshops for our high school students to discuss pathways and admissions to college, and we also did a 5-week scholarship writing series, and we assisted with application assistance. So the American Indian Recruitment and Retention Office came out and helped our students apply to college. We also have a back to school bash, which is in the beginning of the school year, and we do that in collaboration with our parent committee and the Volunteers of America. And at that event, every single one of our students who attend get a backpack for school supplies, and then get to hear about the services we have for the year and different organizations from the community. And we also do an American Indian graduation recognition in collaboration with the parent committee. Our parent committee fundraises throughout the year to provide gifts for our students at that time. We'll move quickly here. These are pictures from some of the activities we did last year. This is our graduation, our hand game tournament that they participated in at Sac City College, and our summer program. And this is some of the data for the CAS scores for ELA. And so I wanted to make a distinction because I know that sometimes the data that we see is usually the reported out data for American Indian students, but this is the students, the enrolled AIP highlighted in red are for the data for the students enrolled in our program. That's for ELA. And in math, the data is much different from the students enrolled, identified as American Indian, and then also performing slightly better than all students in the district. And then a chronic absenteeism rate, which is 2 times the amount of all students. And this was a focus. So last year, the initial thought was that we were going to put out information about chronic absenteeism and what that meant and the data behind that. And then we started hearing back different stories from our families about reasons why they're missing school. And a lot of them had to do with, like, some of them were attending ceremony and those things, the different, like, deaths in family, the different protocols around that and how many days there's meant to be at home and meant to be in ceremony. And there was a number of different things, and there was not a bad pushback, but there was a lot of discussion had about that. So one of the next steps that we have, we'll discuss what our next steps is into that is. And then our graduation rate, 87.5% of our students have graduated. And then our next steps. So we want to develop a survey that has a measurement of students' understanding of cultural and identity and knowledge. We've been using focus groups and kind of relying on parents' information about what they're saying their students understand. So we got to develop a survey that's directly for our students and the students receiving services and measuring that. And we're increasing the amount of tutoring this year with the Title IV dollars. Students will get the 2 hours a week. We're going to focus on the curriculum, and I think in the summary, executive summary that I had produced, there was a report done by the Sacramento Native American Health Center, and curriculum was one of the highest needs for our students and the focus on that. And some of that had to do with invisibility of students and the lack of accurate history of Native students, and this is currently what they're learning. So one of the first things that we did this year when I came back from maternity leave in September was we came back and I started getting together documents ready for Native American Heritage Month. And so we put together a list of resources and do's and do nots and things like that that could go out to the school sites for this month, because the month of November tends to be, it's Native American Heritage Month, but then there's also the focus on the Thanksgiving that a lot of our, which is a choice that people use in their classes. So we sent out information about that. And determining reasons for absences of American Indian students. So this year, that's going to be one of our biggest focuses, is to develop a measurement tool to figure out why our students are missing school. And after that information, I'd like to come back and share that so that there could be, and if it is in regards to like cultural reasons and things like that, I don't know what the recommendation would be as far as a district would go, so much as there's an understanding of just knowing that this is something that our students are doing at that time. But I believe that's all that I have for today. Oh, yes, and we're going to align with the Enrollment Center to assist with enrolling students in the program.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments on this item?
We do. We have a card from Emma Snuggs, and I don't know if this is maybe an error. We have two from Susan Morla on the same topic.
Hello.
Hi, good evening. I want to start by thanking you, one, for acknowledging our students and acknowledging our program and leaders like Christina Prairie Chicken and mothers like the ones behind me. Just to be acknowledged sometimes means so much more than you could ever understand, more than I hope you ever have to struggle to understand. I want to start also by saying that I struggled to think about what I would say here today, and I thought about why that was, and that's because our children are up against so many barriers. Native American children and people in general are up against tremendous barriers. And so it's very difficult to narrow that down to a 2-minute conversation. But I would like to request, if nothing else, culturally competent training for trauma response in support of Christina Prairie Chicken and the American Indian Education Program here in SCUSD. We are in the most progressive city, in the most progressive state, in the most progressive country in the world, despite what the news may say. This school district, our school district, is a leader amongst leaders. And I have faith that you all will do the right thing when the time presents itself, and I know that you all will find a way to create those opportunities for us, and we'll support you in doing that. I also want to say I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, as is my son. This is my other son, and he and his family are from the islands of Samoa. And I just want to point to what it means to be a survivor of trauma. The Trail of Tears is looked at as scholars looked at by scholars as an American Holocaust. And so when you deal with our kids, I ask that you please keep that in mind. Please keep that in mind.
Thank you very much. And are you combining two public comments?
No, I'd like 2 minutes on each.
Okay.
If that's okay. So the first topic was, is there any order that you'd like me to go in?
So we can probably do 4 minutes and you can just choose
Go
the
into
order.
it? Okay. So the first topic I'd like to talk about is the asking for more funding and allocation of more staff time to assist Native students within Sac City Unified School District, our Native students. So our students in the American Indian Education Program whom are participating and connecting are thriving and gaining so much knowledge and a sense of community and literally becoming a family. We have high-achieving students, and a lot of credit goes to Christina Prairie Chicken Narvez, the program associate. I can only imagine how it could change our students' lives, more students' lives, if we had more time allocated to this program. These are only 3 of the students that 3 of the 5 students that I have within Sac City Unified School District. I am a mother, I'm an auntie, I have lots of family within Sac City Unified School District, but I feel like all of our students can't be reached because of time. I am part of the parent committee. We spend numerous hours together trying to figure out how can we go to back to school nights, how can 3 or 4 or 5 of us parents go to all these back to school nights and reach these Native students and the parents, but time doesn't allow it. We all work full-time jobs, some of us 2 jobs. To support our families. So my ask again is for more funding and allocation of staff time to assist the American Indian Education Program and our students. The second topic was the absenteeism of our Native students. It was touched on a little while ago. My ask is to make cultural ceremony and events for our Native students an excused absence. My children participate in ceremony on an ongoing basis. Ceremony for us is our way of life. It's prayer, community, language revitalization, dance, spiritual, in some instances the coming of age, and learning and carrying on a culture, songs, stories, and tradition that some people thought they destroyed. It hasn't been long that we natives have been granted the right to practice our traditions and cultures without being against the law or having fear being arrested or worse. My children have been identified as truant on many occasions. I've lost count due to attending ceremony and that reason not being excused. The threatening language in the letters that I receive of my students not being on track for graduating and failing out of school, I feel is an effort to deter parents in this situation of ceremony from taking their kids to ceremony. I myself have looked at it like I need to keep my kids in school because of the fear of what's in that letter. I grew up knowing better, though. I know that our ceremony is what it is, and it needs to be, and it always will be. The other issue aligning with this is being denied homework from teachers because the absence is not excused. Luckily, I have high-achieving students whom can afford the loss of homework and the days out of school without being excused, but this isn't the case for many families. Our way of life is extraordinary and important, and I'd like you all to know that. So excusing our children for ceremony and cultural events and purposes is a priority for myself. I will tell you that I will still pull my kids out of school. All of my kids, I have 5 children. My cousins, my aunties, my uncles, everybody pulls their kids out. If we have an event, and our events are not planned. They're not planned, there's no flyer for an event. I've been told numerous times you need to bring back a flyer if you want us to put it in her file. There's no flyer for our spirituality or doing what we gotta do to pray and to be us as people. So again, I ask that cultural events and ceremony be excused for our Native students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other public comments?
No other comments.
So with that, we're going to take board member comments. We have 10 minutes for board member comments on this item. And if you can please reset the clock. Thank you. Our first board member comment is from board member Morawski.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I wanted to ask, do we have recommendations in terms of adapting our curriculum to reflect more accurate historical representations, or has that been discussed or done
I don't know if
already?
it's been discussed prior, but I think that's a much larger conversation than right now. But I think there's definitely some recommendations. And I think that, and I know like Elk Grove, they actually really are a model for how they've worked with their American Indian community. And I know that when they've gone into their textbooks and things that they've used, they've actually invited the community to come in and review like the historical accuracy of the textbooks that are used for their students. So that's an option, but I think that yes, and I think that's something our committee, I myself would like to be a part of, and knowing and understanding, because I'm not as familiar with the curriculum, how it's run in the district and that sort of thing. So it's
Well, just a statement then, I would be very supportive of taking a look at that, and I don't know what the correct advisable format is for that, but you know, if you were to offer recommendations that could be communicated back to the board, things that we can look at in terms of reflecting our history that sometimes people don't want to take a look at, but we need to.
I can also say we can definitely sit down with Christine and Matt Turkey and spend some time with the academic office and see what we need to do to further address this. I think bringing in community, as Christina stated, is going to be of high importance for us. So I think there's just an opportunity for us to really dig deep. So getting with our academic office will be first priority for myself and Christina when we return from break.
Wonderful.
so much.
Well, I would love an update on that when you're, when you have something to move forward with. And I just wanted to recommend to my fellow board members and to the community an exhibit at the Crocker Art Museum. It's extremely moving. It's called "When I Remember, I See Red: American Indian Art and Activism in California," and it's on until January 26th. So if you get a chance to see that, it was extraordinary. So I would recommend it. Thank you.
The Crocker Art Museum gave our program tickets to all of our families with the option
wonderful.
to have the option of attending that and going to see the exhibit.
Member Garcia.
Yes, thank you. This was a very, I think, moving topic, one of the most moving topics I have read in my agendas thus far. So I also echo Board Member Morawski's comments in terms of really looking at curriculum. I think at the state level, this conversation has already started with the Instructional Quality Commission, the IQC. So they're already talking about this, but we don't always need to wait until the state makes decisions, right? So we can go ahead and do our own work. But one of the things that really jumped out at me in terms of the data was the high rate of chronic absenteeism. So quickly trying to figure out sort of reasons why, but understanding that there are very important cultural days in this community, trying to figure out what authority do we have as a school district or as a board in order to reconcile that, right? Ensuring that one of the things that came up is, well, why can't we provide schoolwork ahead of time? I think we have a policy if kids are gone for more than 2 or 3 days, we can make arrangements where our teachers, but trying to figure that out so that it's not a burden or it's not something that you have to demonstrate that you are going somewhere. I recently took my girls out of school because we had to travel abroad for a family emergency, but I asked their teachers if they would recommend any homework that they can do during this trip. So we need to figure that out, I think. Otherwise, we're going to continue to see the high number of chronic absenteeism. I wanted to go back to the enrollment, the 506 form, wondering how does that get to students and families? How are we very proactive about ensuring that this form gets signed? What are some of the barriers? I know you mentioned the documentation, but any other barriers that we can maybe help out with? Because the more participants we have, the more dollars we're able to draw, right? So just trying to work out all those pieces.
Okay, thanks. So we have several different methods of, so at all of our big events, so like the events when we give out all the school supplies, our graduation events, those events we're always recruiting and allowing them to fill out forms during that time. And it can happen during year-round process. And then we do one big mail out once a year too, and that one's like just a mailer, and it has information about the program and provides them the form and then the envelope to mail it right back. And then we also do it through email. This year, we're going to try and in the past, we've also had parents come in and we've done like a phone bank to call out families and reach out to them. And then just throughout the school year, we have like and then we have like the website information. And then part of it also is the capacity that I have. So I have to be really targeted in running program. And then also I have to do the recruitment and verifying all of the forms and making sure that everything is accurate, because if it's not, then the feds send it back and then we are not allowed to count those students. So there's very limited amounts of time for recruitment, I guess, would probably be the biggest hurdle that I have and so when they do send back the forms, some of them aren't filled out all the way. So I have a stack of like 30 forms that I need to work with families on and getting the accurate, maybe it's just a signature, but if any line is missing, we can't count it. So but I guess that would be another hurdle. So this year, the plan is to work with the school sites also. And so we'll be like sending them to the principals to say, the students are enrolled in your school. Can you please have them return this form? Sometimes the form gets returned and it sits at the school office, which we don't get it. So then we don't ever know if they're in our program or not, or enrolled in the program.
So I just have two last questions. So one is, how do you target those students? Is it through the enrollment packet that we get as parents and then we check off?
In our
who you
office, we have like our person who handles our data. I ask, can we have any student who's checked American Indian?
Okay.
And initially for years, I was just only getting like the 235 students. And then I would see families in the community and be like, why aren't you in our program? And they would say, we never got an enrollment form. So I went back and figured out we weren't getting the students who had checked 2 or more. That wasn't showing up when their students are classified as 2 or more. So then we had to do another draw, and that pulled up the 700 students that we have. So then
And as someone who has multiracial kids, it's really important that we count every single box equally because it's part of who they are. So we can't allow that to be a barrier. My last question is in terms of the services that you provide, how do you determine that? And do those change from year to year based on input or need? And I'm just wondering how.
So usually, as far as the cultural offerings, we usually rely on the community, like our parent committee, and then we also put out a survey of like what kind of cultural offerings are you interested in. But then also we're in the year 2 of our multi-year grant, and so when that grant is determined, we work with the parent committee to determine what our objectives will be. And so all of our services are based around kind of our objectives. So that would be the increasing cultural knowledge, graduation rate, attendance, and increasing academic achievement. So all the services kind of are determined by those, and then the parent committee. But the tutoring has always been like a mainstay for the program.
Well, I congratulate you on the data that demonstrates that this program has positive student outcomes in terms of academic achievement. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Garcia. I want to just begin by saying to the students and family members who came out tonight, we see you. And I have to tell you, your stories and what you've shared this evening is so incredibly moving. My husband for many years served as the Assistant Secretary for Environmental Justice and Tribal Affairs for the California Environmental Protection Agency, and is in fact himself also a Native American and Hispanic as well. And the history, the culture, and the inclusion is so critical. To feel so often as a population that you are invisible, despite your level of contribution and your level of need, is unacceptable. And to see the difference you're making in this district is really remarkable. And I want to also just say, Christina, in the agenda, you're listed as Christina PC. Christina Prairie Chicken, that is beautiful. That is who you are. And I want to acknowledge that. as well. Thank you for lifting student achievement through the program and each of the markers that we looked at, from English language to math. I do have one question because it was a variation that I thought was interesting. In terms of high school graduation rates, I noted that students in the program actually, while performing slightly better than all students in the district, are performing lower than American Indian in general. And can you speak to that?
And I was also like that point threw me off too, but I do know that it's 2 students and one that had left the district and then
I
one that's
see. It was a very
currently-
small
yes.
N population. That completely makes sense. And then finally, my last comment is, I don't know if you saw, but the state legislature is calling for requests for proposals from students. There ought to be a law. I really love this idea of, is there an ability for the state to provide some sort of exemptions for cultural ceremonies for our Native students, so that in fact they are not penalized for missing school by virtue of celebrating their culture? And I would encourage you to consider putting in that bill idea. It looks like we have no more board comments at this time. Thank you so much for your effort, and thank you to each and every one of our students and family members who came out tonight.
Thank you.
Item number 9.3, approving resolution number 3113, resolution of the Board of Education to order a school bond election and authorizing necessary actions in connection therewith, which will be presented this evening by Nathaniel Browning and Amna Javid.
Good evening, President Ryan, Superintendent Aguilar, and board members. I'm very excited to bring this item forward to the board and community today to share.
Oh,
Staff will-
yes. Nathaniel, can you wait one moment so we can have individuals clear the room and we can hear? Okay, please go ahead.
Tonight, staff will be presenting an opportunity to bring additional resources into the district to modernize learning spaces that will enhance teaching and learning, increase campus safety and security, and improve curb appeal in our aging facilities. The resolution before you this evening is to place a $750 million general obligation bond on the March 2020 ballot. And to talk more about this opportunity tonight, I have Ms. Amna Javed from the district's facilities planning team, Kathy Domenico from Capital Public Finance Group, and Eugene Clark Herrera, our bond counsel from Oric, Harrington, and Sufclit, and Mark Covington from DLR Group.
Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Aguilar. Before we get into the details about the bond that's in front of you, I want to just briefly discuss the district's current bond program, which includes measures Q and R. Both of these measures were passed in 2012 by voters. Measure Q is a $346 million measure, and the projects that are completed under this measures includes core academic renovations and modernization and repair projects throughout the district. Measure R was a $68 million bond, and the majority of the bulk of the work for this measure went to the creation of the district's central kitchen. The central kitchen is currently under construction, scheduled to be completed next year. As shown on the slide before you, both of these measures are reaching their end. This prompted the district to solicit an RFP for facility master planning services this past spring. During this process, DLR Group was selected to complete the work. Mark is here to answer any questions you might have regarding the facilities master planning processes. The work began on July 1st with the facility condition assessment. The facility condition assessment consists of assessing all of the district's facilities and buildings to determine what their repair needs are. This is part 1 of the facilities master plan. Part 2 of the facilities master plan just recently started, and that includes the planning process of the facilities master plan, which includes the creation of an educational specification document. That process is currently underway. To go into more details about what is an educational specification document, it is a design guideline that is to be used by school design professionals on how to design educational facilities that are in alignment with the district's educational goals. To summarize, an EdSpec is a document that helps answer the design question of how does form meet function, or in other words, how should school facilities be designed so that they help to enhance the delivery of the education that is desired? After the educational specification process, we're going to have a series of community meetings that will occur right after holiday break. And the facilities master plan will be completed in its entirety next spring. The previous facilities master plan that was completed in 2012 showed a district-wide facility repair needs of over $2 billion. The facility condition assessments that were completed this past summer shows the need has grown to over $305 billion. This figure will likely increase once more components of the facilities master plan are completed. And lastly, I want to point attention to the link that's below. This is our facilities master plan website. I encourage everyone to go visit it just to get more updates on the whole process. It will be actively updated as more components of the facility master plan are completed. And with that, I want to turn my attention to Kathy Domenico. She's going to go over the details of the resolution that is before you. Thank you.
So as Amna was mentioning, there's about $3.5 billion of facilities repairs and upgrades that have been identified as we move beyond the Measures Q&R program into really the next phase of the capital plan. And to really get a handle on what the community felt with regards to this type of need and whether there was support for funding of capital projects, the district engaged a firm called True North Research to actually conduct a public opinion survey. The survey evaluated the concept of a general obligation bond as well as several different types of projects to see the community's tolerance and desire for that type of project. The poll included almost 700 participants on a random survey based on the likely voters for March and November of 2020. And the district had actually substantial support, over 60%, in favor of a potential bond based on a specific ballot test. And in a couple moments, I'll share with you what that ballot question really looks like. With a threshold of 55%, indicators showed support for a general obligation bond. There are some key areas of support with regards to projects. The master plan itself will identify really the implementation plan. A survey really helps guide us on how we can craft the language related to a bond project list to allow for projects that are desired by the community. So that's really what we're looking at here. So this is a little bit different than what the master plan is, which is diving into the details and actually putting forward an implementation plan. What we were looking at is what are the global projects that would be included in a bond project list. The top area of support is STEM or STEAM, the Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math program, and facilities to support that program. Career technical education and facilities in this situation to support that program. Rebuilding of older school sites, and honing in a little bit on equity among sites. And I think that was actually an important key message that came out of the survey and also out of a lot of the discussions internally with district staff is creating projects that would bring equity among sites so that they can deliver programs throughout the district. Technology and enhancing technology to support education, more on the infrastructure side is what we were talking about than specific devices, but creating the technology and the electrical improvements and the infrastructure improvements to support the curriculum. And safety and security, I think that kind of speaks for itself. What I do want to call out here, it's something interesting, is that safety and security actually came below some of these other topics. In some districts, I'm finding that districts are addressing safety and security, and so people don't feel like it's as urgent a matter as they previously did. So to the extent that you've been kind of addressing it along the way, maybe it's falling down the list a little bit. So what the poll looked at was a $750 million bond measure, and it tested that dollar amount within the context of a ballot question, which also included analysis of tax rates. So the $750 million is actually derived from a tax rate of $50 per 100,000 of assessed value. If we were going to keep that tax rate and issue bonds over a 10 to 12-year period, we could generate about $750 million. As you recall from Measures Q and R, bonds are issued in series over time. It's not that we issue them all at one time. So this is a concept of how the bonds could be delivered and maintain that tax rate promise. And I am going to point out that's 25-year bonds. So that is well within the useful life of the projects to be contemplated. If there are shorter term projects, the district would actually look at the structure of the bonds and retire principal early so that you're not amortizing some of those technology, even some of the infrastructure projects that have a shorter useful life. You don't want to finance them over 25 years. We would actually, as I call it, front load the principal repayment like we've done with Q and R. And I'm going to have, at the end of this, I want to bring up something kind of exciting about Measure R. The proposed ballot language, this is quite similar to what was tested. There's some tweaks to the language based on some of the findings of the survey, but this is the 75-word proposed ballot statement that would actually be seen by the voters. So when they go to the polls, this is the statement that's in front of them. But is part of a general obligation bond measure, voters are also approving specific projects. And so the bond project list includes various components in these various project categories. And that was, again, you can see it follows what was supported by the community as determined by the survey. So, Nathaniel, I want to turn it over to you for next steps, but before we do that, I would like to take a brief intermission from the crux of the presentation. Your district had a bond sale today for Measure R. And you had a very successful bond sale for Measure R, and I was so excited, I just have to take the opportunity to tell you, you ended up with an all-in true interest cost that includes all your issuance costs of 2.95% on 30-year bonds. Think about your mortgage, think about what you pay on a mortgage. So I just want to congratulate you on a very successful bond sale, and your staff, led by Rose, did a fabulous job in putting all that together. So congratulations on that. Sorry I took an extra time.
And with that, we have a few next steps. Tonight, we ask that the board approve the resolution before you in order to qualify for the March 2020 election. Afterwards, we will file the required documents to get the bond measure on the ballot. As Ms. Javed said, we will be hosting a series of community town halls after the winter break at local schools that includes broader community town halls as well as focus groups with students and other community partners as well. And then finalize the facilities master plan by later in the spring and prepare for the state bond if it passes, which is also on the March 2020 ballot as well. And with that, are there any questions?
First, we're going to take public comment. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We do have two public comments from Kevin Ferreira and Gary Pfeiffer.
Good evening again. The building trades, we believe that the youth is our future and that they deserve state-of-the-art facilities with access to any career path to live their dreams. This bond will be an investment in our children as well as creating blue-collar careers in the building trades. We strongly support this bond, and we ask the board to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Good evening. I stand before this body entrusted, just like many of you, with future education in this community. This is an impressive facility built by many of your former graduates of the school district. And I must commend Trustee Pritchett tonight for her, not only the resolution that was presented earlier, but her commitment to CTE and vocational education in this environment that we live in today. Having just come from what we call contractor college today, which we had 30 former high school graduates that have chosen a career path in the construction industry attend the first of 5 modules. I want to encourage not only the passage tonight, but I want you to look at the future curriculum involved in the district. Facilities are always necessary to house our generations to come, but the curriculum involved in these facilities, the learning, I stand before you as a product, a successful product of public educational and vocational training through the school system. And as I end my career after 44 years of being an advocate for this public school system and the continuing education that it now is looking forward to affording the students, I want to make sure that students are prepared to enter the new realm of construction technology that's out there. Not all students may enter the engineering careers offered by Sac State and the UC system in California. Many of them will go on to take vocational training, but they must be prepared for the new generation of technology that we're utilizing in construction, from estimating to project management to project inception to handoff and implementation in the field. Your future projects will be built by those people. So I ask you tonight, please approve this resolution. Please
Thank you
move this
very
community
much.
forward. Thank you.
Do we have any other public comments?
No further comments.
Okay, so at this time, we're going to take comments and questions from board members. While I have board members queue up, I do have a requested amendment to the current proposal. So California Education Code requires the establishment of a bond oversight committee. On that committee, there are 7 active members, including 1 required from the business community, 1 from the senior citizens community, or related to a senior citizens organization, 1 member representing a taxpayer organization, 1 parent or guardian of a child within the district, 1 PTO representative who is a parent within the district. That leaves 2 additional slots. I am asking for a friendly addition to carve out a slot for 1 member who is active in a community-based organization and 1 member who serves as a representative from labor.
Eugene, you want to speak to that?
So we'll take that full motion at the end, so I'm going to have you hold, but I appreciate the motion in the second. Board Member Minnick.
Thanks. I just had a couple comments, I guess, not really questions. I appreciated when you specifically mentioned the importance of equity among sites. And then it brought me back to earlier statement by Mr. Vasquez and the folks from Hiram Johnson talking about the baseball field. I will say that over these last 3 years, there's one experience that has that hit me the hardest, that I'm the most proud of. And it was when those of us on the facilities committee, President Ryan and Member Pritchett and I, moved then to this group to focus our a large chunk of resources to pay for the football field and track at Hiram Johnson, when we could have potentially said, oh, we're just going to divide it up and everybody gets a little bit of money and we don't really get much for anyone. Knowing that that was a school that had been, had really been in kind of physically in disarray and needed this support. And so then bringing it to this body and have it unanimously passed to support those students. And what I see now every day when I drive by is this amazing field and this amazing campus that didn't exist a year and a half ago. A lot of just that right there front and center made a big difference, and that was a huge moment for that I felt personally sitting on this board. And so as I went through the the resolution here before us tonight. I appreciated the special carve-out, whereas this measure will advance the district's guiding principle of equity, access, and social justice, which states all students are given an equal opportunity to graduate with the greatest number of post-secondary choices from the widest array of options. I just think that as we move forward, hopefully move forward on this tonight, that every single conversation and every single decision that we make regarding these funds is going to be focused through a lens of equity. And I'm really appreciative
Absolutely.
that that's been included in our conversation tonight. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Board Member Minnick. Board Member Garcia.
Yes, thank you. I too am excited to support this bond. I think that our facilities are in dire need of upgrades, whether they're to get modernized or to completely get rebuilt in order to really provide a positive learning environment for our kids. But I do want to address, I think, something that is important to explicitly state in the bond language. So I am asking for a change, and that is to set aside 1% of the $750 million. So that would be $7.5 million for preschool education. And this is with the goal of increasing access to preschool education in our district. Our district is doing tremendous work around early literacy, kinder readiness, and many other efforts that, quite frankly, we need to address them before our kids enter kinder. So one way to ensure that our district prioritizes that is by explicitly setting aside that dollar amount or that percentage. So I want to make sure that that is included in the bond language. So again, it would be that the board shall set aside 1% or the equivalent of $3.5 million to improve access to preschool education.
Sorry, Board Member Garcia, I believe you mean $7.5 million?
$7.5 million, yes. Thank you very much. To improve access to preschool education by increasing capacity, including modernizing preschool facilities or classrooms, building new preschool classrooms, new preschool facilities, and also wanting to make sure that we are consistent with our equity lens. But this particular set aside needs to have a different index in terms of determining priorities, and that would be based on an equity that is to be designed to identify the needs of our student populations that are in greatest needs. So it's making sure that we continue with our commitment to equity, but that that equity index is designed to identify student populations with the greatest needs in our district. So I ask that we include that in the bond language in order to demonstrate our commitment to early education in our district.
Thank you, Board Member Garcia. I have language for suggested inclusion, and I'm supportive of that important addition, both through an equity lens, an ability to grow enrollment, and to meet the needs of our student population across the district. Board Member Pritchett.
Thank you, President Ryan, and thank you, Member Garcia, for bringing that to our attention. And I do support that, especially through the lens of equity. I don't really have any questions. I just have comments because I'm really excited about this. We've have had discussions in the facilities committee about this. We've actually been talking about doing a bond for some time now. So I'm kind of excited that it's here and we're moving forward. And I just want to point out that in the with this polling, I'd like to see, a broader list of, what else was, on the list and not just the top 5. But I'm glad that you gave us the top 5. But I love, 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 love that CTE came number 2 on this list. And I at Rosemont High School 3 years ago, we brought forth a CTE program at Rosemont High School, and we thought we had only anticipated 60 students our first year, and our first year we ended up having a little over 120 students that enrolled. And this year it's grown so big that we had to add advanced classes. So this is definitely a high need in our communities. Like I said earlier with the college update, not all of our students are cut for college. And a blue-collar job doesn't have to mean that you make less money. It means that you could make a very decent wage and support your family. So I'm excited that we are giving a pathway for college, but we're also training our students. So I do have some questions about the buildings, and I don't know. I like that we are putting the language to provide modern and career tech training centers, and I'm assuming that means that we can maybe have this at like all of our comprehensive high schools. Is that like something that we can look at? Is that what that means?
Yeah, that's possible. So the language within this resolution gives the staff the ability to move around and figure out what that looks like based on the facilities master plan when it is completed.
Yeah.
And based on the equity indices also noted within the whereases.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think that that's been kind of my dream on the board of, now that I've seen how successful it was at Burbank and Rosemont High School, and hoping that we can get this out to all of our comprehensive high schools. That'd be fantastic. So, I wanted to thank the building trades for coming out and speaking on this, and thank you for your partnership on getting our kids trained. And a lot of our partners have donated materials to our school sites, and to make sure that our kids have a good learning experience. Like, for example, welding boots and stuff like that that just kind of popped up out of nowhere. So I'm really excited about this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Pritchett. I'm going to ask that we add 5 additional minutes to the full board member comments, given how significant the action we're about to take is. We have next a comment from Board Member Morowski.
Thank you very much. Let's see, I have a couple of things. First, I'm excited to be able to support this measure. Our students deserve world-class facilities, and we have a long way to go. This is probably not even adequate. I was kind of disturbed to see that we have 3.5 billion with a B in repairs, and so this is probably not even enough. But I think it's a good compromise in terms of the effect on our community. My understanding is that the way the project list is laid out, that this is flexible enough to accommodate a lot of different projects. So the board, in conversation with the community, will be able to decide and prioritize. So I just wanted to make that point very clearly, because going back to the timeline, and if you can pull it up, the district master plan is due, the final report is due in May. We're talking about putting this item on the ballot in March. And so one of my questions is, can you just address the kind of the timing issues and why that's not a problem? Or
yeah, Kathy.
So I want to touch on a little bit about what you said about the project list and the flexibility, because it really does flow right into the timeline. The project list, and Eugene can expand if I'm missing something, but the project list was drafted with the intention of creating flexibility for the district to go through the master plan process, evaluate the community desires, have the board go through its own prioritization, work with that equity index along with this formulaic process for identifying projects in order to actually develop the implementation plan. So the project list was actually written with that flexibility in mind to not preclude projects that may come out of the master plan from being implemented based on all of these various criteria. I find it actually quite common for school districts to do a master plan even after the bond passes. A lot of school districts are in a position where they can't fund the cost of a master plan prior to a bond. So it is actually not unusual overall for that master plan to come later on. Your district is in a position with an ongoing bond program to be able to fund that type of research and planning. Honestly, it's not always the case. So, and even if you go back to measures Q and R, the sustainable facilities master plan existed, but the other components were still in the developmental phase. So even back in 2012, we were kind of in this situation. Practically speaking, before you go to issue the bonds, which doesn't happen at the time of the measure, it happens slightly after, that's when we have project plans in place and we're actually developing the implementation plan. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I just want to be clear, and also for the community to be clear about, you know, that we're doing things in the correct order, that we're not kind of cart before horse, in terms of putting it on the ballot and then finalizing the facilities master plan. So I think what you're saying is that the facilities master plan will identify with more specificity what we need. We'll be able to prioritize from there, but the project list and the bond, the way it's drafted, will be flexible enough to accommodate those specific projects.
Exactly. And may I also comment on March election and why that's a desirable timeline? Is that appropriate? So March, as most of you know, the state is also putting a school bond on the ballot in March. And that has a kind of a dual benefit to the school district. Number one, if we are able to successfully pass our bond, we can get our projects planned and in the pipeline for state funding, for state matching funds. As you probably know, Prop 51 that was passed, was that 2014, is already exhausted. And there's a backlog of projects currently at the state. So to the longer we wait, the farther we're down the line, and the state isn't releasing funds necessarily in a timely manner. So the farther down you are on the list, the longer you're waiting until you're getting your funding. And as you know, what's happening with construction costs are escalating rapidly. So if we're waiting to get funding, the costs just keep going up and you don't get as much bang for your buck. That's part A. Part B with the state school bond is they are going to be educating statewide on the need for school facilities. And we can piggyback a little bit on their efforts to educate our own population on the need for investing in school facilities. So it'll just help reinforce some of the messages that we would be communicating out. They are going to be communicating the same thing. Finally, the election environment and the likely voter turnout in March is simply more favorable than what you're likely to see in November, especially with the anticipated items on the November ballot. So that is the thinking behind the March election. And although it's not perfectly in line with your master plan timeline, it's not really that unusual to have the bonds and the funding source. Actually, it'd be kind of nice because you can implement your master plan right away. So I hope that answers.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I have a couple other things. So I just want to speak to the other points that have been raised in terms of early education. You know, I think this is a direction that we need to be going, and I'm happy to support a set aside for preschool, and also support the suggestion of having a CBO representative and a labor representative on the advisory committee. There's one thing that I want to request to add to, I think, to the project list, and you can tell me if that's the right place, but well, first I should acknowledge that in an earlier draft did not include or alternative transportation infrastructure, and I requested that be added, so I want to acknowledge that addition, and thank you very much. There's one other thing that I think is missing, and that is safe and accessible drinking water projects.
And actually, this is a conversation I also had with Nathaniel. Can you speak to that and the ability to install hydration stations?
Yes, it's on the project list. Let me look for it real quick. Go ahead.
So Member Morowski, that was one of my top concerns too. We actually had some very egregious instances where school sites had just marginally consumable water, and we had to fundraise through grants for hydration stations to rectify that inequity.
Thank you for the, that's
Page
unacceptable.
A6 at the about second bullet from the bottom.
A6.
That's in there.
Plumbing, including but not limited to water and sewage draining, valves, backflow prevention, lateral storm drains, water mains, sinks, water heaters, neutralization tanks, shower heads, and other fixtures.
I think, because we have one that says hydration stations.
Oh, my gosh, okay, I'm sorry. Maybe
Oh,
I'm
you're not
looking
looking
at
at
the
the current,
updated.
yeah.
Oh, okay, got it.
It's okay.
Very sorry. It's okay. Yes, okay. Okay, so I'm glad that that was taken care of. Then I have one other question about the ballot wording. Is it possible to further emphasize that there are annual audits, that it's a citizens oversight committee? I think, you know, we have been in the news quite a bit and with our district. It's not always good news. And, you know, as we work through some of our fiscal challenges, I think it's going to be really critical to be able to emphasize the multiple different accountability measures that are that the bonds are subject to, and sort of separate that from, because it is a completely different funding source with a different structure, and separate that from, you know, what may or may not be our general fund budget issues.
Thank you.
And so when you say ballot language, you're thinking of the
75
short summary?
word summary.
So
Yeah.
that is already included there. It's part of the last line of the 75 words. And
Is there any way to expand on that? Can we tweak? Can we tweak another part of it, or?
Yeah,
so
75 words.
I'm going to try to respond to all of the board's feedback and just provide a little bit of guidance, if I can, to help you move towards this action, reacting to some of the requests and comments. On this one in particular, I think, as Kathy described, you know, there is sort of data supporting this particular formulation of the language. And it's, in my experience, and I was involved with measures R and Q and drafting those as well back in 2012. So kind of with that hindsight and some other experience I have with other school districts, I would say we tend to kind of not want to tinker with the formulation there in the 75 words because it has, like I said, support in the data.
Because that's what was poll test.
Right.
That's what was poll tested.
Right, and there are a lot of substantive. There's a lot of substantive information and legal, pretty technical legal concepts
Understood.
that all have to kind of get stitched together in that short question. So it's quite difficult to kind of tinker with it without taking more time. And I think you guys are, because of the deadlines for the March 20 election, you kind of need to take action tonight. So I would kind of advise to just keep the 75 words the way they are. You are allowed, if the board approves this, you know, in your communications as you look towards the election, to emphasize, you know, for example, the existing practices and audits and oversight that, you know, you've already got a track record that you can demonstrate to the community based on Measure R and Q and how that's been managed. So you can bring forward all that kind of information, but I would say not to do it in the, not to kind of alter those 75 words.
If we have one more word, can we add arts? Because I noticed that's something that, you know, a lot of folks are interested in, and we have the STEM in here, but not STEAM.
Yeah, shoot.
Real fast on the 75-word on the accountability, also the bond project list, the full text of the measure that the bond project list is included in, that will be published in its entirety in the ballot materials, and it actually has a lot of detail about the accountability standards.
yeah.
So I think that'll address.
For the people who read it, yes.
Yeah, for the people that read it.
Yes.
I agree with Eugene, though. I probably wouldn't tweak too much with that ballot statement right now. Just, especially that last sentence, or that last phrase.
Yeah.
I do a lot of work actually in Placer County, which is pretty conservative, and they kind of read that last line and kind of ends on that, and everybody goes, oh, okay, accountability. So I do think it captures the accountability and has the reaction that you're looking for. So that would just be a recommendation on that.
Citizen oversight / audits. It seems like it's not enough to me, but it's / audits, right?
Probably get rid of the slash and say annual audit. That might be, I've seen that language.
So I'm just going to make one other request before Member Morawski asks her final question. I know we have an extra, I think we have a board member who has requested another question because we have 2 other board members who have not spoken. We're actually going to take their comments first, given the remaining time that we have.
That was my last. I just wanted to request arts be added if there seems to be space, because it says it has the STEM and not the STEAM.
And I have to say, arts polled very well in our parcel tax polling, polled very well last time around when we did the bond combo. If that's one word that could be added, I think it probably would be beneficial.
I defer to you because it's a political
Okay.
question.
Yeah, we can add that in the second line under, behind science. Instruction in math, comma, science, comma, and arts, comma, and engineering.
Great. Okay, Member Vang, followed by Member Minnick.
Thank you, President Ryan. I'll keep my comments short. One, I'm also incredibly excited to be supporting this bond. I think our neighborhood schools are way overdue for upgrades. I did have some questions around the polling. One is, it's really great to see the positive support, the 60% support in favor of potential bond. But I'm curious to know what was the question that was asked to get to that 60%? And I ask that because I think, language and question matters when you're doing polling, and so I would be interested to know what was the questions that were asked.
So it was pretty similar to the ultimate ballot language. It's basically, in order to upgrade, repair, construct, and equip classroom science labs, career training centers, and school facilities that support college and career readiness in science, math, technology, engineering, arts, and skilled trades, keep instructional technology up to date, and improve student safety and campus security, shall the Sacramento City Unified School District measure authorizing $750 million in bonds at legal rates be adopted, levying 5 cents per $100 assessed value, $38 million annually, while bonds are outstanding, with citizens' oversight and all money locally controlled.
That was a question that was asked over the phone?
That was asked.
Okay.
And some of it was done online.
Okay.
So it's a dual mode. It was a dual mode survey.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking if I was a voter and I heard all of that, I mean, what picks up is basically upgrades, right? Another question I had was when y'all did the polling, did you poll kind of voter attitudes towards the district given our financial situation? Because I think Member Morawski spoke to, we've been in the news, and I think for me, while I'm going to support this bond, and it's great to see the 60%, I think it's also important for us to really understand just attitudes of voters in the district. And so I'm curious to know if you did any polling around just attitudes towards the district.
So the survey was kind of a thicker survey. It started with a listing of some issues facing the community and facing the district. Talked about the quality of education. It talked about repairing and upgrading facilities, tax increases, property values, public safety, gang activity, and reducing gang activity and violence, traffic congestion. It went through several different things. It didn't specifically call out the district's financial situation and as a lead-in question. But what it did go through were some messages and some key messages throughout, both positive and negative messages. And some of the negative messages did contain specific questions about the district's financial situation.
How did that poll?
So what it basically does is it goes through the series of these messages, and then it looks at how it sways the response to the exact same question. And overall, positive messages didn't really move the overall share. It just made people that supported it more intensely support it. And the negative messages, we ended up basically in the same place we started in. So it really, the messaging either way didn't provide a lot of movement on how the initial test played out. It was all within the margin of error, which is kind of an interesting, so essentially district's budget, all of these other issues, they didn't drastically impact how people viewed the measure.
Okay.
Also, Member Vang, we can also message a little bit after the board takes action around, this is a general obligation bond, it's separate from the general fund, it's only for facilities, upgrades, and such like that. So I think that's the critical part.
Yeah. I just have one addition. I think Member Morowski kind of mentioned this. I think, with the last sentence, and I don't want to wordsmith, but I think it's really important, that we mention anything, whether it's an annual oversight or independent, because I think it's, I want voters to be assured that, that we will have an independent, that we're going to have an independent citizen oversight. And so I would just recommend, even if it's a small tweak, whether it's annual or independent, I think that would make a difference. Secondly, I also just want to, say I support the amendment to make sure that we have a CBO in labor as part of the seat with the Oversight Committee. And I also support Member Garcia's request regarding the, is it 3.5?
7.5%.
7.5% for preschool facilities. And then the last thing I would also say is that, given that it sounds like, as I'm just counting my votes on the dais, that this is going to pass, is that March 2020, March 3rd is just around the corner. And that also means, while we only need 55% of the voters to vote for this, it's still going to be a heavy lifting from not just this board, but this entire community. And so I'm really encouraging and really just doing a call to action, really asking parents, community partners, our labor partners, really to help us, because even if this board puts this bond measure on the ballot, it's going to take all of us to get this to pass. And so, I'm really urging all our labor partners and our parents to get ready, because we're going to need your help to get this passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Final questions from Board Member Minnick, and then I think we have a comment from Board Member Garcia.
I just wanted to raise a little bit of concern about Member Garcia's carve out for preschool. I'm all in whatever we decide to do, but I want to make this the least restrictive to us and to staff as possible. And it seems as though preschool facilities are included in this already because it's covering all our facilities. I'm worried about if we have this carve out, that we lose some level of flexibility as things ebb and flow and our needs change, and to be be focused on equity. I want to make sure that we have as much flexibility as possible. And I worry about kind of locking us in, and a lot of the projects that are on this list impact the preschool and the K6 on the same campus, and then how are we going to identify that, and like all this stuff. And it seems like at this point in the process, I would rather we had less restrictions. And then I'm all for making sure that our preschools get the resources they need, but I'm just a little concerned about that. So maybe I
have
could get a response from you guys or from the facilities department or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I'm planning to address that exact issue whenever you guys are kind of ready to, when your deliberation is at the appropriate point.
I think this is it, please.
A couple clarifying things, just legal stuff to say to you so you hear it, and then I'm going to come to that last. So two things before that. One is we will share with staff, and also for them to share with you, materials that we publish for our clients regarding campaign finance and the state laws that govern what activities are permitted versus prohibited for and by staff with respect to the measure, should you approve it tonight, because once you call an election, that brings forward a very clear dividing line that public resources can't be used for partisan activities. And so I just want to mention that we'll share those materials so that you guys have all those rules in front of you as you move forward. Creating a campaign committee, for example, is a very common way that a school district board might engage with the community in partisan activities that's separated from staff and the district's resources. The second thing I wanted to mention is coming back to some of the things that the question about timeline and some of the things that Kathy said. I just want to I want to clarify for you so that you hear it and understand what your measure says. You have evaluated the needs, the facility needs that was presented to you tonight, and that is actually a constitutional prerequisite to moving forward with a Prop 39 55% bond measure. So in terms of the timing, you're satisfying, you're checking the boxes that you need to check along the way, and the flexibility that Kathy described that is embedded in this project list and that member Minnick just referenced, it is intentionally flexible, but it's also very carefully specific enough to satisfy the constitutional requirement that you put forward a specific list of types of projects. So I wanted to clarify that there's no misunderstanding that it's sort of somehow just a blanket authority to do anything you want, because it's not and it can't be. But what it is it's a reflection of the needs that have been identified, and it is intentionally giving you authority to address those needs at every facility in the district, okay? But it also does, as you point out, in several places, give the board the power to establish priorities and establish, there's language on page A2 to develop equity indices and identify funding priorities. That language comes again on A5. So I highlight that to come, I guess, to the last point, which is to kind of respond to the concept of composition of the oversight committee, addressing preschool, and particularly setting out a dollar kind of figure or limit in the measure language. What's best practice for a large unified school district bond program of this nature is to do exactly what you're doing in this resolution, and then to come as a board with a companion resolution that sets forth the priorities, the rationale, and the approach that you intend to take and you're going to bind yourselves to the community to take by establishing a policy. So sometimes those resolutions come on the same night as the measure's called. And I think Nathaniel and I are learning about some of the members' priorities in real time this evening, so we don't have a companion resolution for you, but the best practice would be for you to do that. It can be at the next board meeting after there's been more thought given to exactly how to articulate that it is the priority and policy of the district that should this be passed, 1% will be set aside for preschool, that the oversight committee, which is required by state law to be comprised as it's described here, will also, in addition to the state statutory requirement, include a representative of labor and a representative from a community-based organization. And you can add other priorities and establish other policies that will govern how you go forward during the term of your service to implement this. I say it's a best practice to take that approach because as you are doing, and as other large urban school districts do around the state, these these needs are massive, and the programs are very long term. I mean, you see that we've spent, it'll be 8 years to address or to implement the authority that voters gave you through Q&R. This could very well take a decade to fully implement, right? So you for that reason, it's intentional in the drafting that it be carefully limited so that it satisfies the constitutional requirement, but also carefully embedded with enough flexibility to give yourselves and future boards the ability to establish priorities and establish policies for how the funds will be spent over that long time horizon.
Just to follow
That
up.
makes sense?
Yeah, that was helpful. So that companion resolution that you're talking about?
Yes.
That does not have the same time limit restrictions that we're talking about? Because you talked about at the beginning.
No, you could do
we're
that.
We're on a crunch time here.
You could do that. You could wait to see if voters approve it and then adopt your policies, or you could do it at the very next board meeting because you want to be able to evidence that the policies have been considered and established in advance of the election. There's flexibility for when and how you do that.
That's really helpful. Thanks.
Additionally, I would also recommend that perhaps we go forward with some community forums and feedback to get their input as well before possibly bringing in a resolution. Also know that we're moving forward every single day and really focus on the facilities master plan piece of it. So and the facilities department within the district have been really focused and talking a lot and outlining what these equity indices would look like for the bond if this is passed. And the DLR group has actually provided a really strong rubric for what that looks like as well. So being able to gather more feedback from the community, get a little further down with the facilities master plan, and have staff start developing what the indices looks like may help inform the resolutions or policies soon.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Garcia, did you have a final comment?
I do have a clarifying question
Okay.
and then another question on a different topic. So I still think it's critically important that the preschool language be in the bond language. I understand what you just said, but we're setting priorities here. It needs to me, it needs to be what's before the voters out of the gate. It needs to be clear to the voters that our district, our board is prioritizing early education. So I think we can move in that direction. I don't think it's in conflict with law. I think maybe further clarification can be brought forth in a subsequent resolution to the extent that we continue to noodle how this could work. But I stand by my request, and that needs to be in the bond language. And I did have another question. I don't know if this has come up. I just heard about it this morning in talking with other districts relative to facilities as well, is whether or not devices for vaping detectors could be included in is an authorized purchase with bond dollars. So I know that that student safety and campus security systems is something that's authorized. But as you know, that we have a growing epidemic of vaping, especially among our high school or young students. So I'm just wondering, moving forward, going back to a comment that was made earlier by one of our public commenters, looking back 7 generations, looking forward 7 generations. This is a 10-year plan, trying to figure out how to provide the flexibility for the district and the board to potentially include that as an authorized use of bond dollars as we continue to figure out how we're going to address vaping on our campuses. And it's my understanding that some of these detectors. They have to be put in bathrooms, obviously, which would require many detectors at a high school site, et cetera. So anyway, something to think about, but I just learned about this morning, so I forgot to mention it earlier.
And on that note, I did want to mention that I had reached out on the allowable project list and confirmed because, our new normal is fires in the state of California. And last year, we were looked to for school districts throughout the region determining whether or not they would close based on whether or not we were going to close. And yet we did not have air monitors at our school sites that gave us a baseline. I was able to confirm that we are able to, as an allowable purchase as part of this, purchase air monitors so that we can, I believe, be a leading school district in the state of California in monitoring the air quality at our school sites and developing a policy around school closures when unhealthy air days due to fires or other circumstances should arise.
So Member Garcia, to answer the two-part question, that will fit underneath the air quality monitors, which is on the top of A7. The top first bullet on there is HVAC systems, including but not limited to boilers, gas lines, control systems, automation systems, air quality monitors, chilling water coils, and control valves, etc. Additionally, the vaping detectors, it wouldn't be able to purchase as a standalone item, but if we were to retrofit a restroom, at that point we can install it because the monitors don't have a useful life that is long enough to purchase with a 25-year bond. But if it's part of and incorporated in a larger project, it makes perfect sense and is allowable.
I just wanted to put it, just ask the question because we'll probably continue to, right, it'll continue coming up. This epidemic is getting, greater. And it's hitting, I think, school districts just now. We're like in the beginning stages of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Garcia. So I just wanted to confirm that while it is recommended that we develop a companion policy, and I would say we do that post haste because we have to instill in voters the confidence that we have a committee and will continue to think through strategic priorities consistent with what is outlined before us tonight, that we are able tonight to add to our oversight committee the two recommendations that I asked of the community-based organization as well as the representative from labor. We are able to add the provision pertaining to preschool, recognizing that how that unfolds beyond the language that we are sharing can be determined in the companion resolution that we'll put forward in the coming weeks.
Okay.
We are asking to add the word arts to the proposed ballot language. I do want to say the one other thing on that ballot language, and I'm not going to spend time wordsmithing, and if you choose not to find a way to put this in, I will understand, but there is not one place in this language where we say students. And I find that to be very troubling, even though it is only a 75-word limit. And so in the same way I would love to acknowledge arts, I think having students somewhere that this is connected to matters, if at all possible. With that,
Wait, so are you saying
my
we do
light
include
was
them?
oh, sorry.
Include the changes?
Yes. Yes, Board Member Pritchett.
Thank you, President Ryan. With that, with your proposed changes, I'm going to move to approve Resolution 3113.
Do we have a second?
We should have two motions. One, conference to action. Two,
Okay.
action.
Thank you so much. Do you? Oh, all those in favor? Okay.
We can add the word students, or we can add the word art.
You can only add one or other.
And that's why I would like some direction on which way we want to go.
I have another suggestion. I'm sorry. Instead of saying update older schools, you can eliminate the word older. I think it's redundant. It's a given. That's why we're asking for money. So that way we can accommodate both students, and I would suggest to upgrade student classrooms, et cetera, and then you can make room for arts, students in arts.
Quality
Like that,
student
to upgrade
instruction
student,
or student?
so it would be to upgrade student classrooms, labs, libraries, and learning technology.
For
In other
quality
words,
student instruction, that would be a kind of another place to consider.
I would.
I actually think having
Just have it right
students
up
as the
front.
third word makes a lot of sense. Yeah, at the front. I think
So-
that's good.
To upgrade student classrooms. Got it.
Yeah, I'll accept those amendments.
Can I ask, then I want to be somewhat precise in saying the amendments verbally so that Nathaniel and I can
Yes, absolutely.
type them in to the resolution that does get
Okay.
signed if you do.
So I have these and I can provide them in writing to you. The amendment that we are proposing from Board Member Garcia, and this is in the full description, obviously, not the proposed ballot language, is the board shall set aside 1% or the equivalent of 7.5 million to improve access to preschool education by increasing capacity, including modernizing existing preschool classrooms and/or constructing new preschool facilities. The board shall prioritize funding based on the use of an equity index designed to identify student populations with the greatest needs. And I can provide that copy. We are asking for the addition of student.
And before you continue, I think I will add that on page A3 under limitations on use of bonds
Okay, perfect.
as a second full paragraph there.
Great.
And we'll use the language that you just described.
Excellent.
Okay.
Under the proposed ballot language, the amendment that we're taking is to upgrade student classrooms, labs, libraries, and learning technology. And then we'll continue on. And where did we identify for arts?
Technology for quality instruction in math, science, arts, and engineering.
Okay.
Can I suggest we say math, arts, science, and engineering?
Math, science, and arts.
Okay.
So it's after the word science.
What's the purpose?
It's after.
So math, science, arts, and engineering, okay.
Okay.
Okay. And then the final amendment is on the bond oversight
Wait
committee.
1 second, just for the record. And it's also to delete the word old in front of schools to meet current academic and safety standards.
Older, yeah.
Older. Correct?
Yes. And then the final addition is to the Citizens Oversight Committee composition. The addition of one representative from a community-based organization and one representative from labor.
So I would propose in the paragraph on A3, Citizens Oversight Committee, about 5 lines from the bottom.
Got it?
After bona fide taxpayer organization,
Mm-hmm.
comma, a member that is active in a labor organization,
Mm-hmm.
comma, a member that is active in a community-based organization.
That's,
And the sentence
that's amenable.
continues from
I
there?
think that's good.
Okay. You got that?
Okay.
I got that. And there's a paragraph coming from Member Ryan to go right here. Okay.
Okay. So we
with-
moved from conference to action.
With those amendments, with the preferential vote. That's the
Student
first
preferential
motion.
vote.
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Now action with the same amendments, preferential vote.
Student preferential vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting these resources. Item 9.4, approving the submission of credential waiver applications to the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing.
Good evening, Board President Ryan, members of the board, Superintendent Aguilar. My name is Concy McCarn, the Chief Human Resource Officer, and with me is Tammy Mora, our credential auditor, to talk with you about some waiver applications that we need your approval on to help keep some teachers in the classroom.
Good evening.
We're here to request the submission of the waiver applications to the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing for Education Code 44253.3, which allows school districts to waive a portion.
Yeah.
I'm short. Do you want me to start over? Okay. No. Okay, so we're here to waive a portion of the requirement for certificated teachers in order to allow time for program completion. California Commission on Teacher Credentialing requires that every waiver request go through a public notice process at the local level and must be board approved in a public meeting prior to submission of the employing agency to CCTC. Submission of a credential waiver application to the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing. Areas requested with this waiver are for English language authorization. This waiver will enable the teachers in these difficult-to-fill positions the opportunity to complete requirements set forth by CTC and to remain in their positions and continue their work with students. The 3 waivers that we have before you are for teachers at Luther Burbank, Hiram Johnson, and they're for CTE credentials. For teachers, CTE credentials in arts, media, and entertainment, criminal justice, and law and social justice academy.
So this is just a snapshot to show previous credential waiver requests that we've made and you've approved, again, to help keep teachers in classroom and just give them a little bit more time to complete their credential requirements. So with this, we recommend that you approve this waiver request and again, give the teachers just a little bit more time to finish up those requirements.
Do we have any public comment?
We have no public comment.
Oh, okay. Questions from my colleagues? Nope. I have a motion. I have a motion.
Motion from conference to action, 2-step process.
Okay. All those in favor? Oh, wait a minute. All those in favor, moving from conference to action, student member. Board? Aye. Okay. Action. Motion moved and seconded. Student member. Board? Aye. There you go.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. Items, a motion to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Yes, on all open session items.
Okay. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Ma, you can vote? Aye. Thank you. Item 11, business and financial information, and October year-to-date suspension reports. We've received them. Item 12, future board meetings, December 19th, 2019 at 4:30, closed session at 6. January 16th, 2020, 4:30, closed session, 6 o'clock open session. With that, move to adjourn.
We're adjourning to closed session, aren't we, or not?
Okay.
So, motion to adjourn to closed session is before the board.
Okay. All those in, they have a motion? I guess we
Just adjourn to closed session, aye.
Oh, okay.
You all agree?
Let's go.